The kiss that destroyed everything happened in front of 20 witnesses. Helena Vale, the Ice Queen CEO, who'd never shown weakness in 15 years of corporate warfare, pressed her lips against her marketing director's mouth mid-argument, silencing Daniel Mercer's resignation speech with desperate, trembling hands. Glass walls, executive stares, a career detonating in real time. But that wasn't the scandal. The scandal was what happened after. The abandoned child she'd hidden, the missing wife who returned, and the 9-year-old boy caught between 3 broken adults trying to build something that looked like love. This is their story. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city so I can see how far this journey travels. The fluorescent lights of Vale Dynamics' top floor burned cold and relentless, the kind of illumination that made everyone look slightly dead. Daniel Mercer had noticed this his first day on the job 6 months ago, and he noticed it again now as he stood in Helena Vale's corner office, resignation letter trembling in his grip. "You're making a mistake," Helena said, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she'd already decided the conversation's outcome. She didn't look up from her laptop screen, fingers still flying across the keyboard, as if his career implosion was merely a minor scheduling conflict. Daniel's jaw tightened. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, the Chicago skyline stretched endlessly, all steel and ambition. He'd moved here for this job, uprooted Noah from the only home he'd known, promised his son that this time, things would be different. "With all due respect," Daniel said, though respect was the last thing coursing through his veins, "you don't get to decide that." Now Helena looked up. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds over Lake Michigan, gray, calculating, and completely unreadable. At 42, Helena Vale had built a marketing empire on her ability to predict human behavior, to manipulate desire, to make people want things they didn't know they needed. She wore her dark hair in a severe knot that probably cost more to maintain than Daniel's monthly rent, and her Armani suit fit like armor. "I'm the CEO," she said simply. "I decide everything that happens in this building." "Not this." Daniel took a step forward, years of swallowed frustration finally finding their voice. "Not my life. Not my son's life." Something flickered across Helena's face, too quick to name, gone before Daniel could identify it as anything human. "Your son," she repeated, and there was something strange in the way she said it. "Noah, isn't it? 9 years old, 4th grade, loves dinosaurs and hates math homework." Daniel froze. "How do you—" "I know everything about my employees, Mr. Mercer." Helena stood, and even in her heels she barely reached his shoulder, but she commanded the room like a general surveying a battlefield. "I know you're behind on your car payments. I know you take the L train instead of driving because parking costs too much. I know you eat lunch at your desk because you can't afford the cafe downstairs." Each word landed like a slap. "I know," Helena continued, circling her desk with predatory grace, "that you took this job because you were desperate, because your wife disappeared 18 months ago without warning, without explanation, leaving you with a traumatized child and a mountain of debt. I know you moved here because Chicago offered a fresh start, and I know that walking away from this position, from this salary, this opportunity, would be financial suicide." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. "You don't know anything about what I need. I know you need this job. I need my son." The words exploded out of him, echoing off the expensive minimalist decor. "I need to be there when he has nightmares about his mother never coming back. I need to make it to his parent-teacher conferences. I need to be something more than the ghost who leaves before breakfast and comes home after bedtime." Helena's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted, a nearly imperceptible stiffening. "The Carlson pitch is in 3 days," she said, her voice returning to its usual crystalline control. "We've spent 6 months developing this campaign. If we land this account, it's a $14 million contract. Your team has done exceptional work. Walking away now would be—" "I don't care about the Carlson pitch." The silence that followed was absolute. Helena Vale didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stared at him with those storm cloud eyes like he'd spoken in an alien language. "You don't care," she repeated slowly, testing the words. "Not more than I care about Noah. No." Daniel straightened his shoulders, finding his footing. "Last week, I missed his school play because you scheduled an emergency client dinner. The week before that, I couldn't take him to his baseball game because we had to redo the Morrison presentation. Yesterday, he asked me if I even remembered what his teacher's name is. Daniel's voice cracked. I don't remember, because I've been so consumed with hitting your deadlines and meeting your expectations and proving I deserve to be here that I've forgotten the only thing that actually matters. He placed the resignation letter on her desk. I start at Peterson and Associates in 2 weeks. Less money, fewer hours, weekends off. I can be the father Noah deserves. For a long moment, Helena said nothing. She stared at the letter like it was a bomb that might detonate. Peterson is a third-rate agency doing coupon circulars for grocery stores, she finally said. Peterson lets their employees leave at 5 o'clock. You'll be wasting your talent on projects that don't matter. I'll be there for my son. Helena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You think parenthood and success are mutually exclusive. That's a failure of imagination, Mr. Mercer, not a fact of life. Easy to say when you don't have children. The words left his mouth before he could stop them. Helena went very, very still. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Daniel opened his mouth to apologize. He'd crossed a line, he knew it, but Helena spoke first. You have no idea, she said quietly, each word carefully controlled. What I do or don't have, what I've sacrificed, what I understand about priorities. Then help me understand, Daniel shot back. Tell me how someone who clearly has no one waiting for her at home could possibly comprehend what it's like to be someone's entire world. To know that if you fail, a child suffers. To carry that weight every single moment of every single day. He shouldn't have said it. Knew it even as the words poured out. But 6 months of 70-hour weeks and missed bedtime stories and Noah's increasingly quiet disappointment had built a dam inside him, and now it was breaking. Tell me how you could possibly understand what it's like to choose between being good at your job and being good to your child. Because from where I'm standing, you've never had to make that choice. You've never had anyone need you for anything except quarterly profits and market analysis. Helena's face had gone pale. You think I don't understand sacrifice? Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the office like a blade. You think I don't know what it's like to be abandoned? To need someone who isn't there? She took a step closer. You think I built this company, this life, this armor? She gestured at herself, at the office, at everything she'd constructed. Because I've never been vulnerable? Because I've never needed? Because I've never been the child left behind? Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. Helena closed the remaining distance between them in 3 strides. They were standing less than a foot apart now, and Daniel could see things he'd never noticed before. The faint scar near her left eyebrow, the exhaustion she hid behind immaculate makeup, the tremor in her hands she'd clenched into fists to control. You don't know me, Mr. Mercer, she said, and her voice was shaking now, all that iron control fracturing. You don't know what I've lived through, what I've survived, what I've become to ensure I never feel that helpless again. Then tell me. She kissed him. Not gently, not romantically. She grabbed his collar and pulled him down and pressed her mouth against his with something that felt like drowning, like desperation, like a levee breaking after years of holding back a flood. Daniel's mind went blank. Her lips were softer than he'd expected. She tasted like the expensive coffee she drank and something else, something like fear, like loneliness, like all the things she'd hidden behind boardroom confidence and merciless deadlines. For one impossible second, Daniel's hands moved to her waist, his body responding before his brain could catch up, and Helena made a sound against his mouth, small, broken, utterly unlike the woman who'd terrorized vice presidents and made grown executives weep. Then reality crashed back. Daniel jerked away, stumbling backward into a chair. Helena stood frozen, her hand over her mouth, eyes wide with horror. She started. Daniel couldn't speak, couldn't think. His lips still burned where hers had been. Mr. Mercer, Daniel, I don't... Helena's legendary composure had completely shattered. She looked young suddenly and terrified and completely lost. That was inappropriate. That shouldn't have... Through the glass walls of the office, Daniel could see the executive team in the conference room across the hall, could see them staring. 20 witnesses to the moment Helena Vale's perfect control had detonated. I have to go, Daniel heard himself say. I have to. Noah's school called. He's sick. I need to. It wasn't true. Or rather, it had been true 3 hours ago, which was why Daniel had come to resign in the first place. Lakeside Elementary had called during the Carlson prep meeting, and Daniel had ignored it because Helena was presenting, because the stakes were high, because he'd told himself it was probably nothing serious. But it was serious enough that they'd called twice. Serious enough that when Daniel finally checked his messages during a bathroom break, the nurse's voice had that careful tone adults use when they're trying not to alarm you while simultaneously signaling that you need to come now. Go, Helena said, her voice hollow. Go to your son. Daniel grabbed his jacket and ran. The L train crawled through Chicago's north side with maddening slowness. Daniel stared at his reflection in the dark window, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and guilt. What the hell just happened? Helena Vale had kissed him. The woman who'd spent 6 months treating him like a particularly useful algorithm had pressed her mouth against his in the middle of an argument in full view of half the executive team, throwing away her reputation and his career in one reckless moment. Why? Daniel touched his lips, still feeling the ghost of her there, still tasting coffee and desperation. You don't know what I've lived through. Her voice echoed in his head, raw and breaking. For 6 months, he'd seen Helena as the enemy, the brilliant, heartless executive who demanded perfection and offered nothing in return, the woman who scheduled meetings on Saturdays and sent emails at midnight and expected everyone to orbit around work like it was the only thing that mattered. But in that moment before the kiss, when her control had fractured, he'd seen someone else entirely, someone familiar, someone who looked the way Daniel felt at 3 a.m. when Noah had nightmares and asked when Mommy was coming home. Someone alone. The train lurched to a stop at Belmont. Daniel bolted through the doors and ran the 4 blocks to Lakeside Elementary, his dress shoes slapping against wet pavement. It had started raining, the kind of cold October drizzle that Chicago specialized in, the kind that soaked through everything. The school secretary buzzed him through immediately. She knew him. He'd been here enough times over the past 6 months for various drop-offs and pickups and forgotten lunchboxes. Room 110, she said. The nurse's office. Daniel's heart hammered as he jogged down the familiar hallway, past construction paper art projects and alphabet posters. Through the small window in the nurse's office door, he could see Noah lying on a cot, his face pale, a bucket nearby. Daniel pushed open the door and stopped. Helena Vale knelt beside Noah's cot. She was still in her Armani suit, completely out of place among the cartoon Band-Aids and vision test charts, but she'd taken off her jacket. Her severe bun had loosened slightly, and she held a damp cloth in one hand. As Daniel watched, frozen in the doorway, Helena gently brushed Noah's sweat-dampened hair back from his forehead. The nausea should pass soon, she said softly. You're doing great, Noah. Just keep breathing slowly. Noah nodded weakly, his eyes closed. My dad's coming, he whispered. He always comes. Something flickered across Helena's face, something painful and tender and impossibly complicated. I know he does, she said quietly. You're very lucky to have him. She wrung out the cloth in a basin of cool water and placed it on Noah's forehead with a gentleness that made Daniel's chest ache. This couldn't be the same woman who'd fired 3 senior executives in 1 month for missing quotas, the same woman who'd reduced a vice president to tears during a presentation review, the same woman who'd kissed him 40 minutes ago and fled like she'd committed murder. Ms. Vale, the school nurse appeared from the supply closet, carrying a package of saltine crackers. Oh, Mr. Mercer, you're here. Both Helena and Noah's eyes snapped to the doorway. Dad! Noah tried to sit up, then winced and lay back down. Helena stood quickly, her professional mask sliding back into place so fast Daniel almost doubted what he'd witnessed. Almost. Mr. Mercer, she said, her voice carefully neutral. Good. Noah needs to go home. The nurse thinks it's a stomach virus. Daniel couldn't find words. He stared at Helena, then at Noah, then back at Helena. You volunteer here? He finally managed. The nurse smiled. Every Wednesday afternoon, Ms. Vale's been helping in the nurse's office for almost 2 years now. She's wonderful with the children. 2 years. Helena had been volunteering at Noah's school specifically, or had it been coincidence, for 2 years, every Wednesday, while simultaneously building a marketing empire and terrorizing her employees and maintaining her reputation as the most ruthless CEO in Chicago. "I should go," Helena said abruptly. She grabbed her jacket and bag with jerky, ungraceful movements. "Noah, feel better, Mr. Mercer?" She couldn't meet his eyes. "We'll discuss your resignation tomorrow." She was halfway to the door when Daniel found his voice. "Wait." Helena stopped but didn't turn around. "Why?" Daniel asked. "Why do you volunteer here?" For a long moment she said nothing. Her shoulders were rigid, her spine straight, all that armor back in place. "Because once," she said quietly, "I was the child who needed someone, and no one came." Then she walked out, leaving Daniel standing in an elementary school nurse's office, his entire understanding of Helena Vale shattered on the linoleum floor. Noah dozed in the taxi home, his head against Daniel's shoulder. The rain had picked up, turning Chicago's streets into rivers of reflected neon. Daniel stared out the window and tried to process the last 2 hours. The kiss, the volunteer work. I was the child who needed someone. By the time they reached their apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in Logan Square that cost too much and had heat that barely worked, Noah was fully asleep. Daniel carried him up 3 flights of stairs, muscle memory from hundreds of similar trips, changed him into pajamas, tucked him into bed surrounded by his collection of stuffed dinosaurs. Noah stirred as Daniel pulled the blanket up. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy?" "The lady from my school, she was nice. She told me about volcanoes while we waited for you." Daniel's throat tightened. "She did? She knows a lot of stuff. Like you." Noah's eyes drifted closed again. "I'm glad you came." "I'll always come, Noah. Always." But even as he said it, Daniel felt the weight of all the times he'd been late, all the missed moments, all the promises he'd broken in service of a job he'd just quit, in service of a woman he didn't understand at all. Daniel's phone buzzed at midnight. He'd been lying awake in the dark, listening to Chicago traffic and Noah's steady breathing from the next room, unable to stop replaying everything. The message was from an unknown number. "I owe you an explanation tomorrow." 7 a.m., Millennium Park, Crown Fountain. "Please." Daniel stared at the screen. He should ignore it, should block the number. Should show up at Vale Dynamics in the morning, collect his personal items, and never look back. Instead, he texted back, "Okay, Jika." Crown Fountain was nearly empty at 7 in the morning, the massive LED faces currently dormant between displays. A few joggers passed by, and a homeless man slept on a bench, but otherwise Daniel was alone with the October cold and his racing thoughts. Helena appeared at 7:03, wearing jeans and a simple sweater that made her look like a completely different person. Her hair was down, Daniel had never seen it down, falling in dark waves past her shoulders. Without the armor of her business attire, she looked younger, vulnerable. "Thank you for coming," she said, staying several feet away, like she was afraid to get too close. "You volunteer at my son's school," Daniel said. Not a question, an anchor point in a sea of confusion. "Yes." "For 2 years?" "Yes." "Why?" Helena wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture so uncharacteristic it made Daniel's chest ache. "Can we walk?" They started down the path toward Lake Michigan, the city waking up around them. For several minutes, neither spoke. Finally, Helena said, "I grew up in the foster system. 8 different homes between ages 6 and 16. No one wanted to keep me. I was too angry, too damaged, too difficult." She said the word like it was carved into her bones. "I learned early that needing people was dangerous, that asking for help was weakness, that the only person I could rely on was myself." Daniel listened, something in his chest cracking open. "When I was 9, Noah's age, I got sick at school. Really sick. Appendicitis, though no one knew it at the time. The school called my foster family and they didn't come. Didn't even answer. I lay in that nurse's office for hours, terrified, in pain, completely alone." Helena's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Eventually, a teacher drove me to the hospital. My appendix burst in the emergency room. I almost died. She stopped walking, staring out at the lake. When I woke up from surgery, my foster parents were there, not because they cared, but because CPS required it. They looked annoyed, put out, like I'd inconvenienced them. Helena, I was moved to a new home 2 weeks later. They didn't want to deal with the recovery. Too much trouble. She laughed, but it was hollow. I swore that day that I would never be that helpless again. Never need anyone. Never give anyone the power to abandon me. The pieces were clicking into place, forming a picture Daniel had never seen before. So you built an empire, he said quietly. So I built walls, Helena corrected. The empire was just camouflage, something to hide behind, a way to prove I didn't need anyone. She finally turned to look at him, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. But walls don't keep you safe, Daniel. They just keep you alone. The morning sun caught her face, highlighting the exhaustion she usually hid, the loneliness she'd armored herself against. I started volunteering at Lakeside 2 years ago because I drive past it every day on my way to work, and one morning I saw a child sitting on the steps crying, just sobbing, alone, and I saw myself. Helena's voice cracked. I couldn't drive past. I went inside, asked if they needed volunteers. They did. And every Wednesday I take the afternoon off, something I've never done for any other reason. And I sit with sick children and scared children and lonely children, because no child should feel what I felt. Daniel couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. When Noah enrolled this year, I recognized his name from your employee file. Single father. Recent trauma. I wanted to tell you, but She shook her head. I didn't know how. And then yesterday, when you said I didn't understand sacrifice, didn't understand being needed, I was wrong, Daniel said hoarsely. You weren't, Helena countered. You were absolutely right. I've spent my entire adult life making sure no one needs me, making sure I need no one. Until yesterday, when you were walking out of my office, walking out of my life, and I realized... She stopped, swallowed hard. Realized what? Daniel asked softly. Helena met his eyes, and in them, he saw everything she'd spent 6 months hiding. The loneliness, the fear, the desperate, terrible hope that maybe she didn't have to be alone forever. That I'd failed, she whispered. That despite all my walls and all my armor and all my control, somewhere along the way, I'd started needing you, needing your brilliant mind and your terrible coffee jokes and your dedication to that little boy, needing someone who understood what it meant to prioritize love over ambition. Daniel's heart was hammering. Helena, I kissed you because I'm terrified, she said in a rush. Because you were leaving, and I couldn't breathe, and every defense mechanism I've spent 30 years building just shattered. And I know it was wrong. I know I crossed every line, violated every rule. I know I probably destroyed whatever respect you had for me. She turned away, wrapping her arms tighter around herself. But I couldn't let you walk away thinking I didn't understand, that I didn't care, that your choice to put Noah first was wrong. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. It's the bravest thing I've ever seen. The words hung in the morning air between them. Daniel thought about Noah, asleep in their apartment, dreaming of dinosaurs and volcanoes and a life that felt secure. Thought about the kiss that had unraveled everything. Thought about Helena kneeling beside his son, brushing hair from his forehead with infinite gentleness. Thought about two broken people, both trying to protect the only things that mattered. I'm not quitting, he heard himself say. Helena's head snapped up. What? I'm not quitting, Daniel repeated, the decision solidifying even as he spoke it. But things have to change, real changes, not just promises. Flexible hours. Work from home options when Noah needs me. No more weekend meetings. No more midnight emails. Done, Helena said immediately. I mean it, Helena. Noah comes first, always. If that's not acceptable, it's acceptable, she cut him off. It's more than acceptable. It's right. She took a shaky breath. I'm implementing family-friendly policies across the company. Parental leave, flexible scheduling, on-site childcare. I should have done it years ago. Why now? Helena smiled, small, sad, real. Because yesterday, a single father taught me that the metrics that matter can't be measured in quarterly reports. and because I'm tired of being alone. Something shifted in Daniel's chest, a wall of his own, crumbling. I have to be honest with you, he said carefully. I don't know what this is, what we are. Yesterday you were my boss. Today I'm still your boss, Helena said firmly. This, whatever this becomes, doesn't change our professional relationship. Can't change it. We have to be careful, proper. But Daniel, she stepped closer, and for the first time since he'd known her, Helena Vale looked uncertain, hopeful, terrifyingly human. I'd like the chance to figure out what we could be. Outside the office, outside the armor. What about the executives who saw us yesterday? Already handled. Emergency board meeting this morning. Full disclosure, ethics review. Potential restructuring of reporting lines if necessary. Helena's mouth quirked. Turns out being the CEO means I can implement policy changes. Who knew? Despite everything, Daniel laughed. The sound seemed to unlock something in Helena. Her shoulders relaxed fractionally, and when she smiled back, it was genuine, small and fragile, and worth more than all her boardroom victories. Noah's going to have questions, Daniel said, about why his school volunteer is suddenly having dinner at our apartment. Is she? Helena raised an eyebrow. Having dinner at your apartment? Friday night, Daniel said, surprising himself. Nothing fancy, spaghetti and garlic bread, Noah's favorite, 6 o'clock. I'll bring dessert. They stood there in the October morning, two damaged people who'd spent years building walls, now staring at each other across the rubble of their defenses. This could be a disaster, Helena said softly. Probably will be, Daniel agreed. I don't know how to do this, how to need someone, how to be needed. Neither do I. Not anymore. Not since... He stopped, the ghost of Marissa hanging between them. Helena nodded understanding. We'll figure it out together, badly, probably, but together. Daniel held out his hand. Helena looked at it for a long moment. This offering, this terrifying possibility. Then she reached out and laced her fingers through his. Her hand was warm, trembling slightly, real. Together, Daniel echoed. And as they stood there, the crown fountain came to life behind them. LED faces cycling through images of Chicagoans young and old, each one different, each one human, each one part of the city's complicated, messy, beautiful story. Neither of them knew it yet, but theirs was about to become equally complicated, equally messy, and maybe, just maybe, equally beautiful. The executive team was waiting when Daniel arrived at Vale Dynamics at 8:30. He'd gone home, changed into fresh clothes, checked on Noah, still asleep, dinosaur nightlight glowing, and steeled himself for the fallout. Marcus from finance cornered him at the elevator. Dude, what was that yesterday? Complicated, Daniel said shortly. Complicated doesn't cover it. Helena Vale doesn't do complicated. She does efficient, strategic, and occasionally terrifying. She doesn't do... Marcus gestured helplessly, whatever that was. The elevator doors opened. Daniel stepped inside. People change. Not Helena Vale. But as Daniel rode up to the executive floor, he thought about a 9-year-old girl lying alone in a nurse's office, appendix bursting, and decided Marcus was wrong. People didn't change. But sometimes, if you looked close enough, you saw who they'd been all along. His phone buzzed. Helena. Board meeting went well, policy changes approved. Coffee later? My office. Bring terrible jokes. Daniel smiled and typed back, why did the scarecrow win an award? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, I'm going to regret this. Why? Because he was outstanding in his field. The response was immediate. That's awful. You smiled, though. A longer pause. Then, yes, I did. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Through the glass walls, Daniel could see Helena in her office, phone in hand, and even from this distance he could see her smile. Small, private, real. She looked up. Their eyes met across the expanse of corporate minimalism and glass and steel. And for the first time in 6 months, Daniel thought maybe, just maybe, he'd made the right choice coming to Chicago after all. Not for the job, for the possibility of something he'd stopped believing in after Marissa left. The chance to build something real with someone equally broken, equally brave, equally determined to choose love over fear. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth having ever was. Daniel took a breath, squared his shoulders, and walked toward Helena's office, toward the beginning of something he couldn't name yet, something fragile and terrifying and shot through with hope. The kiss had been the detonation. This was the aftermath, and in the ruins of their carefully constructed walls, something new was starting to grow. The coffee in Helena's office tasted different now. Less like obligation, more like possibility. Daniel sat across from her desk 3 days after their conversation at Crown Fountain, watching her review the Carlson pitch presentation with the same ruthless precision she'd always had, except now he could see the cracks in her armor, could see the way her jaw tightened when she was anxious, could see her fingers tap against her thigh when she was thinking too hard. "This slide is weak," she said, not looking up. "The demographic breakdown doesn't tell a story, it's just numbers." "Numbers are what Carlson wants," Daniel countered. "Carlson wants to feel like we understand their customers better than they understand themselves." Helena finally met his eyes. "Give me narrative. Give me emotion. Make me care about these numbers." It was the same conversation they'd had 100 times before, except now, when their eyes met, something electric passed between them, acknowledgement of everything unsaid, everything that had changed in a single kiss. Daniel cleared his throat. "I'll revise it." "Good." Helena closed her laptop. "How's Noah?" The question still surprised him every time. For 6 months, Helena had never asked about Noah. Now she asked every day, and the genuine concern in her voice made Daniel's chest tight. "Better. Back at school yesterday. He asked about the volcano lady." Helena's lips curved, that small, private smile that was becoming dangerously familiar. "I have a name, you know. To him, you're the nice lady who knows about volcanoes and doesn't mind when kids throw up. High praise in the elementary school world." They were flirting. Daniel realized it with a start. Sitting in Helena Vale's office at 9 in the morning, flirting like normal people. Like the kiss had opened a door neither of them could close now. "Friday," he said. "You're still coming." Something vulnerable flickered across Helena's face. "If the invitation stands." "It stands. Noah's excited. He's been planning the menu. Apparently spaghetti wasn't sufficient. We're now also having breadsticks, salad, and something he's calling fancy cheese. I'll bring wine." "He's 9. "The wine is for us, Daniel." Helena's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Unless you've developed a policy against adults drinking in your home. Just checking. You never know with CEOs, very particular people." "Insufferable, you mean?" "I didn't say that." "You were thinking it." Helena stood, smoothing her skirt. "I have a board call in 5 minutes. Same time tomorrow? We need to finalize the Carlson creative before the pitch." Daniel gathered his materials but paused at the door. "Helena?" "Yes?" "Thank you for the policy changes. Maria in accounting told me she's taking her daughter to a dental appointment this afternoon without using vacation time." She almost cried. Helena's expression softened. "It should have been standard practice years ago. I just didn't see it. Didn't want to see it." She met his eyes. "You made me see it." The weight of that admission hung between them. Daniel wanted to cross the room, wanted to touch her hand, wanted to acknowledge the courage it took for Helena Vale to admit she'd been wrong about anything. Instead, he said, "See you tomorrow." "Tomorrow," she echoed. But as Daniel left, he felt her watching him go, felt the pull of whatever was building between them, slow and terrifying and inevitable as gravity. The elevator ride down felt different now. Everything felt different. Marcus was waiting at Daniel's desk, practically vibrating with curiosity. "So? So what?" "Don't play dumb. The entire floor is talking about the policy changes. Flexible scheduling, work from home options, parental leave expansion. Helena Vale just became the most family-friendly CEO in Chicago. What kind of voodoo did you work?" Daniel powered on his computer. "No voodoo, just conversation." "Conversation," Marcus snorted. "Right. And that kiss was just a handshake?" Daniel's hand stilled on the keyboard. "How many people saw that?" "Enough." Marcus's voice gentled. "Look, I'm not judging. Hell, most of the executive team is taking bets on how long until you two make it official. But Daniel, be careful. Helena Vale doesn't do relationships. She does quarterly reports and hostile takeovers. Whatever you think this is, I'm not thinking anything, Daniel cut him off. We're professionals. We're colleagues. That's all. Marcus raised his eyebrows but mercifully didn't push. If you say so, but for what it's worth, I've worked here for 8 years. I've never seen her smile like she did when you left her office just now. So whatever you're not thinking about, it's definitely something. Daniel tried to focus on work after that, tried to lose himself in demographic data and consumer behavior patterns, but his mind kept drifting, kept replaying the way Helena's voice had softened when she asked about Noah, the way she'd admitted she should have implemented family-friendly policies years ago, the way she'd looked at him like he was something more than an employee, more than a colleague, more than a mistake she regretted. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Mercer, this is Lakeside Elementary. Noah is asking for you. Non-emergency, but could you call when you have a moment? Daniel's heart lurched. He dialed immediately. Mr. Mercer, thank you for calling back so quickly. The school secretary's voice was warm. Noah's fine. No illness, no injury. But he's having a hard day. Mrs. Patterson says he's been quiet all morning, not participating in class activities. She thought you might want to know. Can I talk to him? Of course. One moment. There was a shuffle, then Noah's small voice. Dad? Hey, buddy, Mrs. Patterson says you're having a tough day. Silence. Then, so quietly, Daniel almost missed it. I miss Mom. The words hit like a physical blow. 18 months since Marissa had disappeared, and the wound was still raw, still bleeding, for both of them. I know, Daniel said, his throat tight. I know you do. Is she ever coming back? The question Noah asked every few weeks, every few days sometimes, the question Daniel had no answer for. Marissa had left a note, short, devastating. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. And vanished. No forwarding address, no phone number. No explanation beyond 7 words that had detonated their lives. I don't know, Daniel said honestly, but I'm here. I'm always here. Can you come get me? Daniel looked at his computer screen, at the Carlson presentation that needed revision, at the mountain of work piling up, looked at the clock, 10:47 a.m. He'd been at the office for less than 2 hours. Then he thought about Helena kneeling beside Noah's cot. You're very lucky to have him. Thought about her standing in the rain at Crown Fountain. Your choice to put Noah first is the bravest thing I've ever seen. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Daniel said. Pack up your stuff. We're taking a mental health day. Really? Hope crept into Noah's voice. Really? How do you feel about the Field Museum? The dinosaurs? All the dinosaurs you can handle. Noah's laugh, bright and real, made every risk worth it. Daniel hung up and walked straight to Helena's office. Her assistant looked up in surprise. Mr. Mercer, she's on a conference call. I'll wait. Through the glass walls, Daniel could see Helena on her headset, pacing as she talked, gesturing with one hand. She looked fierce and focused and completely in her element. When she glanced up and saw him waiting, her brow furrowed in concern. She wrapped up the call within 2 minutes. What's wrong? She asked the moment her office door closed behind him. Noah's having a hard day. I'm taking him to the Field Museum. I'll work from home tonight, finish the Carlson revisions, have them to you by morning. Daniel waited for the protest, for the reminder about deadlines and client expectations and professional obligations. Instead, Helena said, Take tomorrow off too. What? Take tomorrow off, she repeated. Spend it with your son. The Carlson pitch is Friday. You'll have Thursday to prepare. Today and tomorrow, be with Noah. Daniel stared at her. Helena, I can't just... You can. You should. She moved closer, and her eyes were soft with understanding. He needs you. That's what matters. Everything else is just noise. The presentation. We'll be fine. I'll have Marcus review your current draft, make notes. You can incorporate them Thursday. Helena's hand twitched like she wanted to reach out, then stopped herself. Daniel, go be with your son. The work will still be here. Something broke open in Daniel's chest. Thank you. Don't thank me for letting you be a good father. That should be the baseline, not the exception. Helena smiled, sad and small. I'm still learning that. Daniel wanted to stay. Wanted to ask her what she was doing tonight, if she was going home to an empty penthouse, if she had anyone who asked about her hard days. But Noah was waiting, and the Field Museum beckoned, and some conversations needed more than stolen minutes in a glass office. "Friday," he said instead. 6 o'clock. "Don't forget the fancy cheese. I wouldn't dream of it." The dinosaurs did their job. Noah spent 3 hours racing between exhibits, reading every placard, asking approximately 7,000 questions about the Cretaceous period. Daniel watched his son's face light up with wonder and felt the tightness in his chest ease slightly. They got hot dogs from a street vendor for lunch, sat on the museum steps eating and watching Chicago stream past. "Dad," Noah said around a mouthful of hot dog. "Yeah?" "Is the volcano lady your girlfriend?" Daniel nearly choked. "What? No. Why would you?" "Tyler's mom said you were dating your boss. She saw it on Facebook." Noah looked at him with those two wise 9-year-old eyes. "Is Ms. Vale your boss?" Daniel should have seen this coming, should have anticipated that in the age of social media, an executive team witnessing a kiss meant everyone witnessing a kiss. Probably with photos, definitely with commentary. "Ms. Vale is my boss," Daniel said carefully, "and my friend. But we're not dating." "But you like her." Daniel stopped. Lying to Noah had never worked. The kid had radar for dishonesty. "It's complicated." "That's what grown-ups say when the answer is yes." Noah took another bite of hot dog. "I like her. She's nice. She knows about volcanoes, and she didn't get mad when I threw up." "High bar you're setting there, buddy." "Will she be my new mom?" The question landed like a grenade. Daniel set down his hot dog, no longer hungry. "Noah, Ms. Vale and I are friends, that's all. And even if someday we became more than friends, she wouldn't replace your mom. No one could replace your mom." "Even though Mom left?" The pain in Noah's voice was a living thing. Daniel pulled his son close, feeling him tuck against his side the way he used to when he was smaller. "Your mom loves you," Daniel said, hoping it was true, praying it was true. "She's just lost right now. Sometimes grown-ups get lost. It doesn't mean they stop loving you." "Do you think she'll find her way back?" "I don't know, but I know that whether she does or doesn't, you're going to be okay. We're going to be okay." Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I hope Miss Vale comes for dinner on Friday. I want to show her my dinosaur collection." Daniel's heart squeezed. I'm sure she'd love to see it. They spent the rest of the afternoon at the museum, but Daniel's mind was elsewhere. On Noah's question, on the impossibility of explaining adult relationships to a child who'd already been abandoned once. On the terrifying reality that whatever was building between him and Helena had witnesses now, including his 9-year-old son, who'd already started constructing hope around the volcano lady, who might become something more. That night, after Noah was asleep, Daniel revised the Carlson presentation at their kitchen table. He reworked the demographic slide, adding narrative structure, emotional beats, story arcs that transform numbers into human experiences. Added consumer testimonials. Restructured the entire flow to build toward an emotional crescendo that would make Carlson's CEO feel understood, valued, essential. He emailed it to Helena at midnight with a simple note. "Better?" Her response came through at 12:07 a.m. "Much better. You should be sleeping. So should you. Insomnia and I are old friends." Daniel stared at that message, imagining Helena alone in her penthouse, sleepless and working, the way he'd imagined her 100 times over the past 6 months. Except now the image had texture, had context, had the weight of everything she'd told him about being 9 years old and alone and afraid. He typed, "What helps?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Daniel waited, his heart doing strange things in his chest. Finally, "Honestly? Nothing. I've tried meditation, medication, white noise machines, sleep hygiene protocols. Nothing works. My brain doesn't have an off switch. Have you tried bad jokes?" A pause. Then, "Is this you offering to tell me bad jokes at midnight? I'm a full-service employee. Terrible puns available 24/7. Hit me." Daniel smiled at his phone screen. "What do you call a fake noodle? I'm already regretting this. An impasta." The response was immediate. "That's horrendous. But did you smile?" A longer pause. Then, "Yes. Against my will and better judgment, yes. Want another? Unfortunately. They texted for an hour, stupid jokes and terrible puns and the kind of mindless banter that felt like intimacy without the weight of everything else. Daniel told her about Noah's dinosaur obsession. Helena admitted she'd been terrified of museums as a child because the exhibits seemed too permanent, too settled, everything she wasn't. At 1:15 a.m., Helena sent, "Thank you for bad jokes, for making insomnia less lonely." Daniel's throat tightened. "Any time, I mean that." "Careful, Mr. Mercer. I might take you up on that. I hope you do." He could feel the shift in the conversation, the way it was tilting towards something more honest, more vulnerable. Could feel Helena on the other side of the screen, alone in her penthouse, letting her walls down one text at a time. "I'm scared," she sent, "of Friday, of getting this wrong, of being someone I don't know how to be." Daniel's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then, "Me too. But maybe we can be scared together." Together sounds less terrifying than alone. Significantly less terrifying. I checked the statistics. There are statistics on this? I made them up. But they're very compelling. He could almost hear her laugh through the phone. "Get some sleep, Daniel. Big day tomorrow. You too." "Unlikely. But I appreciate the sentiment." "Helena?" "Yes?" "You're going to be great on Friday. Noah's going to love you. Hell, he already loves you. You know about volcanoes and you don't mind vomit. You're basically a superhero in his eyes." The response took longer this time. "What about in your eyes?" Daniel's heart hammered. The question hung there, enormous and impossible and desperately real. He typed carefully. "In my eyes, you're someone brave enough to tear down walls she spent a lifetime building. Someone who changed her entire company's culture because one employee had the courage to quit. Someone who volunteers in a nurse's office every Wednesday because she remembers what it's like to be alone. In my eyes, Helena, you're extraordinary." The three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." "Good, because I'm crying and I can't type properly." Daniel's breath caught. Happy crying or sad crying? "I don't know. I haven't cried in 15 years. I've forgotten how to categorize it." "Then just feel it." "You don't have to categorize everything. That's terrifying. Most good things are." They said goodnight after that, but Daniel lay awake for another hour, phone on his chest, mind racing. This thing with Helena, whatever it was becoming, felt huge and fragile and completely unprecedented. He'd loved Marissa once, loved her with the intensity of young marriage and new parenthood, but that love had been different, simpler, less weighted by trauma and walls and the kind of damage that made intimacy feel like diffusing a bomb. This, whatever this was with Helena, required a different kind of courage, required both of them to show up broken and scared and willing to risk everything familiar for something completely unknown, and Daniel was terrified he was going to get it wrong. Thursday passed in a blur of final Carlson preparations and Noah's increasing excitement about Friday's dinner. The Field Museum trip had worked. Noah was lighter, more himself, the shadow that had settled over him lifting slightly. "Can I make a welcome sign for Ms. Ishitapam Kotolsad Vale?" Noah asked Thursday night while Daniel attempted to cook a practice batch of spaghetti. "A welcome sign?" "Like for when someone visits. We learned about hospitality in school. It means making people feel welcome." Daniel's heart squeezed. I think she'd love that. Noah disappeared into his room and emerged 20 minutes later with a poster board covered in crayon drawings of volcanoes, dinosaurs, and stick figures labeled Dad, Noah, and the Volcano Lady. In careful 9-year-old handwriting, it said, "Welcome, Miss Vale. We have fancy cheese." "It's perfect," Daniel said, meaning it. "Do you think she'll like it?" "I think she'll love it," Noah beamed. "I'm going to put it on the door." As Daniel watched his son carefully tape the sign to their apartment door, he felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. This wasn't just about him and Helena anymore. Noah was involved now. Noah, who'd already been abandoned once, who was constructing hope around a woman who'd spent her entire life learning not to stay. If this went wrong, when this went wrong, it wouldn't just be Daniel's heart on the line. It would be Noah's too. Friday arrived with October sunshine and cold wind. Daniel took a half day at work, leaving at noon to clean the apartment and prep dinner. He'd stopped at the grocery store the night before, buying ingredients for spaghetti and garlic bread and salad, plus 3 different types of cheese because Noah had been very specific about the fancy requirement. At 5:30, Daniel changed his shirt for the 3rd time. Noah, watching from the doorway, said, "You look nervous." "I'm not nervous." "You're doing that thing where you rub your neck. You only do that when you're nervous." Daniel dropped his hand. "It's just dinner. With the lady you like. With my friend." "Who you kissed." "How do you—" Daniel stopped. "Tyler's mom?" "Tyler's mom talks a lot," Noah confirmed. "She said you kissed Ms. Vale in front of everyone and now you're in love." "Tyler's mom needs a hobby." "So you're not in love?" Daniel looked at his 9-year-old son, too wise and too wounded, and decided honesty was the only option. "I don't know what I am, buddy. I like her. A lot. And I'm scared, because if this doesn't work out, I don't want you to be hurt." Noah considered this. "But what if it does work out?" Then we'd figure it out together, the 3 of us." "I think it'll work out," Noah said with the confidence of someone who hadn't yet learned how badly things could break. "She's nice. You're nice. Nice people should be together. If only it were that simple." At 5:55, the doorbell rang. Noah raced to open it before Daniel could stop him, revealing Helena standing in the hallway holding a bottle of wine and a bakery box, looking more nervous than Daniel had ever seen her. She'd dressed casually, jeans and a soft blue sweater that made her eyes look even grayer, but she still looked elegant in that effortless way some women had. Her hair was down again, and Daniel realized with a start that he preferred it this way, preferred her this way. Less armor. More real. "Hi, Noah," Helena said, her voice gentler than Daniel had ever heard it in the office. "Hi, Ms. Vale. I made you a sign." Noah gestured proudly at the poster taped to the door. Helena's eyes softened as she read it. "This is the best welcome sign I've ever received. And you have fancy cheese?" 3 kinds. 3? That's extremely fancy." Noah beamed and grabbed her hand, pulling her inside. "Come see my dinosaur collection." Helena shot Daniel a helpless look over Noah's head as she was dragged toward the bedrooms. Daniel mouthed, "Sorry," and she smiled. That small, private smile that was becoming his favorite sight in the world. He heard them talking in Noah's room while he finished the garlic bread. Heard Noah's excited explanation of the differences between herbivores and carnivores. Heard Helena ask questions that showed she was actually listening, actually engaged, not just humoring a child. When they emerged 15 minutes later, Noah was practically glowing. "Ms. Vale knows about the KT extinction event," he announced. "Also known as the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary," Helena added. "Though KT extinction sounds more dramatic." "Did you study dinosaurs in college?" Noah asked. "No, but I read a lot." Helena glanced at Daniel, something vulnerable in her expression. "I spent a lot of time in libraries when I was your age. Books were safe." Noah nodded like this made perfect sense. "Books are better than people sometimes." "Sometimes," Helena agreed quietly. The moment stretched between them. This woman who'd been a lonely child and this child who understood loneliness too well. Daniel's throat tightened. "Dinner's ready," he managed. They ate at the small kitchen table that barely fit 3, passing garlic bread and testing the fancy cheeses. Noah talked about school and the field museum and his Halloween costume plans. Helena listened with the same attention she gave boardroom presentations, asking follow-up questions, remembering details. "Do you have kids, Ms. Vale?" Noah asked between bites of spaghetti. Helena's fork paused halfway to her mouth. No, I don't." "Did you want them?" "Noah," Daniel warned gently. "It's okay," Helena said. She set down her fork. "I never let myself want them. I thought I'd be terrible at it, that I didn't know how to take care of someone." "But you take care of sick kids at school," Noah pointed out. "That's different. That's a few hours a week. Being a parent is—" She glanced at Daniel. "Forever. It's showing up every day. Being there when things are hard, not running away when you're scared. Like my dad," Noah said. "Exactly like your dad." The weight of her gaze made Daniel's pulse hammer. There was so much in her eyes, admiration and fear and something that looked dangerously close to longing. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Noah insisted on showing Helena his volcano project for school, complete with baking soda and vinegar demonstration. Helena watched the eruption with genuine delight, and when foam overflowed onto the coffee table, she helped clean it up without hesitation, laughing in a way that transformed her entire face. By 8:30, Noah was yawning. "Bedtime," Daniel announced. "But Ms. Vale is still here." "Ms. Vale will be here tomorrow," Helena said gently. Then she paused, glancing at Daniel uncertainly. If you'd want that." "Saturday?" Daniel's heart raced. "I thought maybe we could go somewhere. The three of us. If Noah would like that." "The zoo," Noah said immediately. "Can we go to the zoo?" Helena smiled. "The zoo sounds perfect." Noah hugged her goodnight, spontaneous and fierce, and Helena froze for just a second before wrapping her arms around him, her eyes suspiciously bright. "Thank you for coming," Noah said into her shoulder. "This was the best Friday." "Thank you for having me," Helena whispered back. "It was the best Friday for me, too." After Noah was in bed, teeth brushed, dinosaur nightlight on, 3 bedtime stories read, Daniel returned to find Helena standing at his living room window, looking out at Chicago's lights. "I should go," she said without turning around. "Or you could stay. Not like that. I just mean—" Daniel crossed the room to stand beside her. "I have tea, and terrible jokes, and a moderately comfortable couch." Helena turned to face him, and in the dim lamplight she looked young and uncertain, and nothing like the CEO who terrified executives. "I had a good time tonight," she said softly. "A really good time. Your son is incredible, Daniel, brilliant and kind and so full of light. You've done an amazing job with him. We've both done the best we could. You've done more than that. You've given him stability, love, presence. You've given him everything I never had." Daniel reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "Tell me about her." "About who?" "The little girl who spent time in libraries because books were safer than people. Tell me about her." Helena's breath hitched. "Why?" "Because I want to know you, all of you, not just the CEO or the volunteer or the woman who kissed me in a conference room. I want to know the person behind all those walls." For a long moment, Helena said nothing. Then she sank onto the couch, pulling Daniel down beside her, their hands still linked. "She was angry," Helena said finally. "The little girl, angry at the parents who gave her up, angry at the system that shuffled her around, angry at herself for not being lovable enough to keep." Daniel's grip tightened. "She learned to read early because books didn't abandon you. Learned to be perfect at school because maybe if she was smart enough, good enough, exceptional enough, someone would want to keep her." Helena's voice cracked. It never worked. She was still too much trouble, still too damaged, still too angry underneath the perfect grades and polite manners. "Helena, by 16 she stopped trying to be wanted, focused on being needed instead. Got scholarships, went to college, built a career on being indispensable." Helena looked at their joined hands. Indispensable is almost as good as loved. Almost. Daniel brought their linked hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Helena's breath caught. "That little girl," Daniel said quietly, "survived things that would have broken most people. She built something extraordinary from nothing. She became someone who helps children feel less alone, even though no one helped her." "She's still angry," Helena whispered. "Still scared. Still waiting for everyone to leave. Then we'll just have to prove her wrong." Helena met his eyes, and hers were swimming with tears she wouldn't let fall. "We?" "Noah and me. We're not going anywhere." "You can't promise that." "I can. I am." "Daniel." Helena pulled her hand away, standing abruptly, pacing to the window. "You don't understand. Everyone leaves. Everyone always leaves. It's not personal. It's just inevitable. Your foster parents left. They failed you. That doesn't mean everyone will. My biological parents left too. So did every single foster family. So did—" She stopped. "So did Marissa," Daniel finished quietly. Helena turned, and her expression was raw. "So yes, I understand that people leave, even people who promise they won't, even people who should stay. Daniel stood and crossed to her. I'm not Marissa, and you're not your foster parents. We're just two broken people trying to build something that doesn't break. What if we break each other instead? Then we break together. Daniel cupped her face in his hands, gentle, giving her every chance to pull away. Helena, I can't promise this will work. I can't promise it won't be hard. But I can promise I'll show up every day, even when it's difficult, even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. A tear finally escaped, trailing down her cheek. Daniel wiped it away with his thumb. I don't know how to do this, Helena whispered. Neither do I. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we learn together. He leaned in slowly, telegraphing his intention, letting her close the final distance. This kiss was nothing like the first one. No desperation, no panic, just soft and careful and achingly tender, like they were both handling something precious and fragile. Helena's hands came up to his chest, fingers curling into his shirt, and she kissed him back with something that felt like surrender, like hope, like the beginning of letting someone in. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Helena rested her forehead against his. I'm still terrified, she said. Good, me too. But I want to try, with you, with Noah. I want to try. Then that's enough, Daniel said. That's more than enough. They stood there in Daniel's modest living room, holding each other while Chicago hummed beyond the windows, two damaged people choosing to risk everything for the possibility of something whole. It wasn't a promise that nothing would break. It was a promise to face the breaking together. And for now, for tonight, that was enough. Helena left just before midnight, and Daniel stood in the doorway watching her disappear down the stairwell, her footsteps echoing in the quiet building. The imprint of her lips still burned on his, and his chest felt too full, like his heart had expanded beyond the confines of his ribcage. He closed the door and leaned against it, eyes closed, replaying every moment. The kiss, the promise, the terrifying, exhilarating feeling of falling towards something he couldn't control. His phone buzzed. Helena. Made it to my car. Thank you for tonight. Daniel smiled. Thank Noah. He planned the menu. Thank you both then. Same time tomorrow? Zoo opens at 9. We'll be ready. A pause, then, Daniel? Yes? I meant what I said. I want to try. His fingers trembled as he typed back, So do I. Sleep well, Helena. You too. But Daniel didn't sleep well. He lay awake thinking about the future he was building, brick by careful brick, and about all the ways it could crumble. Thought about Noah getting attached to someone who'd admitted she expected everyone to leave. Thought about Helena's walls and his own damage, and whether two broken people could actually make something whole or if they just shatter each other into smaller pieces. Thought about Marissa. She haunted him still, even after 18 months. Not because he loved her anymore. That love had died the moment he read her note, crystallized into something hard and cold by months of unanswered questions, but because her absence was a constant presence. In Noah's nightmares. In the extra place setting Daniel sometimes laid out by habit before remembering. In the fear that maybe he'd driven her away somehow, been insufficient somehow, failed in some fundamental way he still couldn't name. What if he failed Helena the same way? What if his best wasn't enough? Saturday morning arrived gray and threatening rain. Noah bounced out of bed at 7, already dressed in his favorite dinosaur shirt, chattering about which animals they'd see first at the zoo. The polar bears, definitely the polar bears, and then maybe the penguins. Do you think Ms. Vale likes penguins? Everyone likes penguins. They're so funny when they walk. Breathe, buddy, Daniel said, pouring cereal. We have 2 hours before we need to leave. I'm too excited to breathe. Daniel understood the feeling. Helena arrived at 8:30 in dark jeans and a cream sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that made her look younger, more approachable. She carried 2 travel mugs of coffee and a bag from the bakery down the street. I brought breakfast, she said, handing Daniel a coffee. Chocolate croissants for Noah, plain for you, and something inadvisably sweet for me. You remembered my coffee order. I pay attention. Her smile was soft, private. Also, you've been ordering the same thing every morning for 6 months. It would be harder not to remember. Noah appeared and launched into an immediate monologue about the zoo's newest exhibit while demolishing his croissant. Helena listened with what appeared to be genuine interest, asking questions about lemurs and their habitat requirements that made Noah's eyes light up. They took Daniel's car, a 10-year-old Honda that rattled ominously but ran, and Noah claimed the back seat, narrating the entire drive about animal facts he'd learned from nature documentaries. Helena sat in the passenger seat, her hand resting on the center console, close enough to Daniel's that their fingers occasionally brushed when he shifted gears. The Lincoln Park Zoo was crowded despite the gray weather, families and couples clustered around exhibits. They started with the polar bears, Noah pressing against the glass to watch the massive animals swim, and Daniel stood behind him with Helena at his side, feeling something dangerously close to complete. "This is nice," Helena said quietly, not taking her eyes off the bears. "Nice?" "Normal. Family-like." She glanced at him, vulnerability written across her face. "I've never had this. The weekend zoo trip, the casual Saturday morning, the feeling of belonging somewhere." Daniel's throat tightened. "You belong here. With us." "Do I?" She looked down at her hands. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for you to realize this is crazy, that I'm too damaged, too difficult, too—" "Helena!" Daniel caught her hand, threading their fingers together. Around them, families milled past, but he focused only on her. "You're not to anything. You're exactly right. You can't know that yet." "Can't I?" Before she could answer, Noah called out, "Dad! Miss Vale! Come see the baby bear!" They spent the morning moving between exhibits, Noah's excitement contagious. Helena surprised Daniel by knowing obscure facts about half the animals: gorilla family structures, the hunting patterns of big cats, the complex social systems of elephants. "How do you know all this?" Daniel asked as they watched the elephants. "I read a lot as a kid, remember?" Helena's expression softened. "Animal documentaries were my escape. Families that stayed together, that protected each other. It was comforting. Knowing that kind of loyalty existed somewhere, even if not for me." Daniel squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. They had lunch at the zoo cafe, Noah chattering between bites of chicken fingers about which animal he'd be if he could choose. Helena played along, declaring herself an elephant because they never forgot anything and lived in matriarchal societies. "What about you, Dad?" Noah asked. Daniel considered. "Maybe a penguin. They mate for life." Helena's eyes met his across the table, and the air between them charged with everything unsaid. "That's romantic," she said softly. "That's hopeful," Daniel corrected. After lunch, the rain that had threatened all morning finally arrived. Cold and sudden and Chicago intense. They ran for the nearest building, laughing and soaked, and found themselves in the reptile house, surrounded by snakes and lizards and one very large python that made Noah squeal with delight. Helena shook water from her hair, her sweater clinging damply to her shoulders. She looked completely unlike a CEO, completely unlike the woman who terrified board members. She looked happy. "I'm drenched," she said, laughing. "You're beautiful," Daniel said without thinking. Helena froze. Around them, children pressed against glass enclosures, parents read educational placards. But in that moment, it was just the two of them standing in dim light surrounded by reptiles, and Daniel couldn't take the words back. Didn't want to. "Daniel," Helena breathed. "Dad, look at the size of that snake," Noah called, oblivious. The moment broke. Daniel and Helena moved to join Noah, but her hand found his in the darkness, and she held on tight. They stayed until the zoo closed at 4, exhausted and rain-damp and thoroughly content. On the drive home, Noah fell asleep in the back seat, his head against the window, completely worn out. "Thank you," Helena said quietly, watching the city pass. "For today, for letting me be part of this." "You are part of this," Daniel said, "if you want to be." "I do. But Daniel," she turned to face him, "I need you to understand something. I've never done this before. Never dated seriously, never integrated into someone's family, never let myself need someone. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to get scared and pull away and probably hurt you without meaning to. I know. And you're still willing to try?" "I'm still willing to try." Daniel glanced at her, then back at the road. "But I need you to understand something too. Noah's already attached to you. He's already building you into his idea of what our family could be. If you're not sure, if there's any chance you're going to walk away, tell me now. Before he gets more invested, before this becomes something we can't come back from." Helena was quiet for a long moment. Rain streaked the windows, Chicago's streets slick and gleaming. "I'm terrified of failing him," she finally said, "of being another person who leaves. But I'm more terrified of not trying, of spending the rest of my life wondering what this could have been." "Then we're on the same page. Are we?" Helena's voice cracked slightly. "Because I look at you and Noah, and I see everything I've never had, everything I convinced myself I didn't deserve. And I'm scared that one morning I'll wake up and realize I was right all along, that I'm not built for this, that I'll ruin it." Daniel pulled over, parking on a side street. In the back seat, Noah slept on, oblivious. "Helena, look at me." She did, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You volunteer in a nurse's office every Wednesday because you remember what it felt like to be alone. You changed your entire company's culture because one employee had the courage to prioritize his son. You spent an entire Saturday at a zoo in the rain because a 9-year-old wanted to see penguins." Daniel cupped her face gently. "You're not going to ruin this. You're already perfect for this. I'm not perfect for anything. Then be imperfect with us. Be scared with us. Be human with us." He leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers. "That's all we need, Helena. Just you, exactly as you are." She kissed him then, soft and desperate, and tasting like rain and hope and every risk they were taking. In the back seat, Noah stirred but didn't wake, and Daniel held Helena like she was something precious that might slip away if he loosened his grip. When they finally pulled apart, Helena whispered, "I'm falling for you, both of you, and it terrifies me." "Good," Daniel said, "because I'm already gone." The weeks that followed developed a rhythm. Helena came to dinner twice a week, always bringing something: wine, dessert, flowers for their kitchen table that Daniel had never bothered with before. She attended Noah's baseball games and sat in the bleachers cheering with an enthusiasm that made other parents stare. She helped with homework. Her sharp mind making math problems seem less daunting, and she read bedtime stories with different voices for different characters that made Noah giggle. At work, they maintained careful professionalism. Daniel reported to Marcus now, instead of directly to Helena, an arrangement the board had approved to avoid conflicts of interest. But sometimes, when they passed in the hallway, their eyes would meet and Daniel would see her smile, small and private, and just for him. The Carlson pitch had been a success. $14 million secured, and the client specifically praised the emotional narrative structure that made their data feel human. Helena had announced it at the company-wide meeting, and when she'd caught Daniel's eye across the conference room, the pride in her expression had been worth more than any bonus. They were building something, slowly, carefully. A foundation laid brick by brick, each day another reason to believe this could work. Until the night everything shifted. It was a Tuesday in late November, cold enough that frost covered the windows and Daniel's breath fogged in the air as he unlocked his apartment door. He'd stayed late finishing a presentation, and it was nearly 9 when he finally made it home. The apartment was dark except for the glow from Noah's room. Daniel hung up his coat, loosened his tie, and walked down the hallway expecting to find Noah reading under the covers. Instead, he found Helena. She sat on Noah's bed, still in her work clothes, Noah curled against her side. They were reading together, some chapter book about dragons, and Helena's voice was soft and melodic, bringing the story to life. Daniel stood in the doorway, unnoticed, and felt his heart crack open. This was what he'd lost when Marissa left. Not just the co-parenting, but the small, intimate moments. Someone else reading bedtime stories. Someone else being there when he couldn't be. Someone else loving his son. Helena looked up and saw him. "I hope this is okay. You were running late and Noah called me. I was just leaving the office, so It's more than okay," Daniel said, his voice rough. Noah perked up. "Dad! Ms. Vale does really good dragon voices." "I bet she does." Helena carefully extracted herself from Noah's embrace. "I should go. Let you two have your evening." "Stay," Daniel said. "Please, finish the chapter." Something passed between them, an understanding, an acknowledgement of the shift that was happening. Helena nodded and settled back against Noah's headboard, and Daniel sat on the floor at the foot of the bed, listening to her read about dragons and knights and magic, feeling like he'd stepped into a dream he was afraid to wake from. After Noah fell asleep, Daniel walked Helena to the door. It was late, nearly 10, and the hallway was quiet and dim. "Thank you," Daniel said, "for coming, for being here." "He called and said you were running late, that he was worried." Helena pulled her coat tighter. I wanted to make sure he wasn't alone." "You're good at this. Better than you think." "I'm learning." She smiled, but it was edged with something fragile. "Every Wednesday at school, every dinner here, every bedtime story, I'm learning what it means to show up, what it feels like to be needed for the right reasons." Daniel pulled her close, breathing in her perfume, feeling her arms wrap around his waist. They stood there in his doorway, holding each other, and it felt like coming home. "I love you," Helena whispered against his chest. The words hung in the air, enormous and terrifying and desperately real. Daniel pulled back just enough to see her face. "Say that again." "I love you." Helena's eyes were wide, vulnerable. "I know it's fast, I know we're still figuring this out, but I look at you and Noah and I feel something I've never felt before, something that feels like belonging, like home. And I think that's love." Daniel kissed her, deep and certain, and full of everything he'd been holding back. "I love you too," he said against her lips. "I've loved you since the moment you knelt beside Noah's cot and brushed the hair from his forehead. Since I realized the impossible boss was just a scared woman who'd learned to armor herself against a world that kept hurting her." Helena's tears finally fell, and Daniel kissed them away, tasting salt and surrender. "Stay tonight," he said. We don't have to. Just stay. Sleep here. Wake up here. Let me make you breakfast." "Daniel, I want to fall asleep knowing you're here. I want to wake up and see you in my kitchen drinking terrible coffee and reading the news. I want one morning where this feels real and permanent and mine." Helena searched his face. "Your couch is moderately uncomfortable." "My bed is significantly better. Is Noah ready for that? For me to stay over?" "I think Noah's been ready since the day you taught him about volcanoes." Daniel kissed her forehead. "We'll figure out the rest together, but tonight, just stay." She stayed. They lay in Daniel's bed, fully clothed, wrapped around each other like teenagers afraid to push too far too fast. Helena fit against him perfectly, her head on his chest, his arms around her waist, and they talked in whispers about everything and nothing until exhaustion finally claimed them both. Daniel woke at 6 to find Helena still there, still real, her face soft in sleep and more peaceful than he'd ever seen it. He watched her breathe, counting the moments, memorizing the way morning light caught in her dark hair. Her eyes opened. "You're staring. You're beautiful. I have morning breath in yesterday's makeup. Still beautiful." Helena smiled and burrowed closer, and Daniel thought this quiet morning intimacy might be the most precious thing he'd ever had. They were still in bed when Noah knocked on the door at 7. "Dad, are you awake? Is Miss Vale here? Her car's outside." Daniel and Helena exchanged glances. She looked terrified. "It's okay," Daniel mouthed. "Come in, buddy," he called. Noah opened the door and stopped, taking in the scene, his dad and Ms. Vale in bed together, clearly having spent the night. His expression cycled through surprise, confusion, and then something that looked like hope. "Did you have a sleepover?" Noah asked. "Sort of," Daniel said carefully. "Is that okay?" Noah climbed onto the bed, wedging himself between them with the ease of a child who didn't understand adult boundaries. "Can we have pancakes?" Helena laughed, bright and surprised and full of relief. "Pancakes sound perfect." They made breakfast together, the three of them moving around Daniel's small kitchen in a dance that was becoming familiar. Noah chattered about school while Helena flipped pancakes with more skill than Daniel expected, and he set the table and poured juice and felt his heart swell so large he thought it might burst. This was a family. Imperfect and unconventional and built from broken pieces, but a family nonetheless. Helena caught his eye over Noah's head and smiled, and Daniel knew she felt it too. the rightness, the possibility, the terrifying, exhilarating feeling of something that might actually last. The weeks before the holidays blurred together in a haze of domesticity. Helena started keeping a toothbrush at Daniel's apartment, then a change of clothes. Then half her closet seemed to migrate into his bedroom. She had dinner with them most nights, worked from Daniel's kitchen table on her laptop while Noah did homework, fell asleep on their couch during movie nights with Noah curled against her side. They told Noah officially in mid-December, sitting him down for a serious conversation that turned out to be unnecessary. "We wanted to talk to you about Ms. Vale and me," Daniel started. "You mean that you're dating?" Noah looked between them. "I know. Everyone knows. Tyler's mom posts about it on Facebook." Helena choked on her coffee. "She what?" "She thinks it's romantic. She calls you and Dad the workplace romance couple." Daniel rubbed his temples. "Of course she does." "So is Ms. Vale going to be my new mom?" Noah asked, direct as always. The question hung in the air like a grenade. Helena went pale. "Noah, I'm not trying to replace your mom," Helena said carefully, finding her voice. "No one could replace her, but I care about you very much, and I care about your dad, and I'd like to be part of your family, if you'll have me." Noah considered this with the seriousness of someone much older. "Will you leave?" Helena's breath caught. "What?" "Like Mom did. Will you leave if things get hard?" The question broke something in Helena's expression. She slid off the couch and knelt in front of Noah, taking his small hands in hers. "Noah, I can't promise that nothing will ever go wrong. I can't promise that your dad and I won't fight sometimes or that things won't be difficult." Her voice shook but held steady. "But I can promise that I will never, ever abandon you. I know what it feels like to be left behind. I know how much it hurts. And I would rather die than make you feel that way." Tears streamed down her face, and Daniel's vision blurred. "So you'll stay?" Noah asked. "Even when I'm difficult?" "Especially when you're difficult." Helena pulled him into a fierce hug. "You're not difficult, Noah. You're wonderful. And I'm so lucky that you and your dad let me be part of your life." Noah hugged her back, and over his shoulder Helena met Daniel's eyes. In them he saw everything she was promising, everything she was terrified of failing at, everything she was choosing despite the fear. Daniel joined them on the floor, wrapping his arms around both of them, and they sat there in a tangle of limbs and tears and tentative hope, building something that felt like forever. Christmas came, and Helena spent it with them. She brought presents, too many presents, expensive, thoughtful things that made Noah's eyes light up and made Daniel's throat tight. A telescope for Noah's growing interest in space, a first edition book for Daniel's collection. Little things that showed she paid attention, that she cared, that she was investing in their future. They gave her a framed photo, the three of them at the zoo, Noah between them, all of them laughing at something the photographer had said. Helena had cried when she unwrapped it, holding it like something sacred. "I've never had a family photo before," she whispered. "You do now," Daniel said. New Year's Eve, they stayed home, put Noah to bed at 9 and opened a bottle of champagne and sat on Daniel's couch watching the ball drop on TV. When midnight struck, Helena kissed him like she was sealing a promise, and Daniel held her close and thought about the year ahead, about proposals and moving in together and all the ways their lives could intertwine further. "I love you," Helena said against his lips. "I love you so much it scares me." "I love you too," Daniel said, "more than I thought possible." They fell asleep on the couch, wrapped around each other, and Daniel dreamed of wedding rings and shared closets and Helena's last name becoming theirs. He woke to pounding on the door. It was 3 a.m, still dark outside, and the knocking was urgent and desperate. Daniel extracted himself from Helena's embrace, confused and disoriented. "Who's knocking at 3 a.m?" Helena mumbled, sitting up. "I don't know." Daniel moved to the door, checked the peephole, and froze. A woman stood in the hallway, thin, with dark circles under her eyes, and clothes that hung off her frame. Rain-soaked and trembling. Marissa. Daniel's world tilted sideways. 18 months. 18 months of silence, of wondering, of rebuilding their lives around her absence. And now she was standing in his hallway at 3 a.m, looking like she'd been through hell. Daniel! Helena appeared beside him, saw his expression, saw the woman through the peephole. Who is that? Daniel's mouth was dry. Noah's mother. Helena's face went white. I have to... Daniel started. I know. Helena stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. I know. Daniel opened the door. Marissa looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. I know I have no right to be here. I know what I did was unforgivable. But Daniel? Her voice broke. I need to see him. Please. I need to see my son. Behind Daniel, Noah's sleepy voice called out, Dad, what's going on? And then Noah appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes, and saw his mother standing in the doorway. Time stopped. Mom? Noah whispered, and the hope in his voice was a knife to Daniel's heart. Marissa dropped to her knees. Baby, oh baby, I'm so sorry. Noah stood frozen, torn between running forward and running away, and Daniel saw his son's entire world fracture in real time. Saw every wall they'd carefully built around his heart crack and splinter. Helena stood in the background, her hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face, and Daniel realized with crushing certainty that everything they'd built, every promise, every moment of hope, every carefully constructed piece of their new life, was about to be tested in ways none of them were ready for. The woman who'd destroyed them had come back, and nothing would ever be the same. Noah didn't move. He stood in the hallway in his dinosaur pajamas, staring at his mother like she was a ghost, and maybe she was. A ghost of the life they'd had before, materializing at 3 a.m. to haunt everything they'd rebuilt. Noah, Marissa said again, her voice breaking on his name. Please, can I hug you? Daniel watched his son's face cycle through emotions too complex for a 9-year-old to process. Hope warred with betrayal, longing with anger, and underneath it all, the desperate need every child has for their mother, even one who'd abandoned them. Noah took one step forward, then stopped. Where were you? His voice was small, barely above a whisper, but it cut through the silence like broken glass. Where were you when I had nightmares? Where were you when I was sick? Where were you for my birthday? Marissa's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, baby. I wasn't well. I needed help. I needed to get better so I could be the mom you deserved. I just needed you, Noah said, and his tears finally came. I didn't need you to be better. I needed you to be here. The words hit Daniel in the chest. How many times had he wondered the same thing? How many nights had he held Noah through nightmares, wishing Marissa was there, wishing she'd chosen them over whatever demons had driven her away? Helena moved then, quietly stepping forward and placing a gentle hand on Noah's shoulder. The gesture was protective, grounding, and Noah leaned back into her touch instinctively. Marissa's eyes tracked the movement, saw Helena's hand on her son's shoulder, saw the familiarity in the gesture, the way Noah trusted this stranger's comfort. Who are you? Marissa asked, her voice sharp with something that might have been jealousy or hurt or both. I'm Helena. Helena's voice was steady despite the tears on her face. I'm a friend of the family. A friend. Marissa looked between Helena and Daniel, taking in Helena's rumpled clothes, clearly slept in, her bare feet, the way she stood like she belonged here. You're sleeping with someone while our son is in the next room? Marissa. Daniel's voice came out harder than he intended. You don't get to do this. You don't get to leave for 18 months without a word and then show up and judge how I've lived my life. He's my son, too. Is he? The words exploded out of Daniel before he could stop them. Because for the last year and a half, I've been the only parent he's had. I've been the one at parent-teacher conferences and baseball games and hospital visits when he had the flu. I've been the one who held him when he cried for you, who answered his questions about why you left, who tried to fill the hole you tore in his life when you walked away. Marissa flinched like she'd been slapped. I know I failed you both, but I'm back now. I'm sober now. I'm ready to be his mother again. The word hung in the air like a bomb. Sober. Daniel's mind raced backward, connecting dots he'd refused to see. The mood swings in their last year together, the weight loss. The nights Marissa had stayed out late, claiming work obligations. The way she'd withdrawn from both of them, becoming a ghost long before she actually left. You were using. he said flatly. Marissa nodded, not meeting his eyes. Pills at first, then other things. It started after Noah was born, postpartum depression that I didn't get help for. The pills made everything feel manageable. Until they didn't. Until I needed more. Until I couldn't stop. Noah made a small sound, and Helena's grip on his shoulder tightened. I went to rehab, Marissa continued, her words tumbling out in a rush. 6 months inpatient, then sober living, then outpatient therapy. I've been clean for a year. I have a sponsor. I'm working the program. I'm better, Daniel. I swear I'm better. And you couldn't call? Daniel's voice was cold. Couldn't write? Couldn't let us know you were alive? I was ashamed. Marissa's tears came harder. I destroyed everything. I abandoned my family. I thought you'd both be better off without me. That Noah would heal faster if he didn't have to watch me fall apart. That maybe if I stayed away long enough, you'd forget about me and move on. He's 9 years old, Daniel said, his voice breaking. He doesn't forget his mother. He asks about you every single day. He has nightmares about you being dead in a ditch somewhere. He blames himself, thinks he wasn't good enough to make you stay. No. Marissa looked at Noah, horrified. Baby, no. This was never about you. You were perfect. You are perfect. This was about me being sick and broken and too scared to ask for help. Noah pulled away from Helena and ran to his room, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. Daniel started to follow, but Helena stopped him with a gentle hand on his arm. Let me, she said quietly, give you two a minute to talk. She disappeared down the hallway, and Daniel heard the soft murmur of her voice through Noah's door, heard his son's muffled sobs, and felt his heart shatter all over again. He turned back to Marissa. She looked smaller than he remembered, frailer, like the last 18 months had hollowed her out. She was still beautiful, would always be beautiful, but it was the beauty of something broken and badly mended. Why now? Daniel asked. Why show up in the middle of the night on New Year's? I've been in Chicago for 2 weeks. Marissa wrapped her arms around herself. Working up the courage, watching the apartment from my car, trying to figure out what to say. I saw her, Helena, coming and going. Saw the way she was with Noah at the park last Saturday. Saw the three of you together looking like a family. Her voice cracked. And I realized if I didn't come now, I might lose him forever. You lost him the day you left that note and walked out. I know. Marissa met his eyes, and hers were full of anguish. But I'm asking for a second chance. Not with you, I know that's over, but with Noah. Please, Daniel, let me try to be his mother again. You can't just waltz back into his life after 18 months and expect him to pretend nothing happened. I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting it to be hard. I'm expecting him to be angry and hurt and confused. But I'm his mother. I have rights. The words sent ice through Daniel's veins. Are you threatening me? I'm reminding you that legally I'm still his parent. I left, but I never terminated my rights. I never signed anything. Marissa's jaw set with determination that looked painfully familiar. I don't want to lawyer up. I don't want a custody battle. I want to work this out like adults for Noah's sake, but I will fight for my son if I have to. Daniel stared at her, this woman he'd loved once, this woman who'd destroyed their family, and now stood in his doorway making threats wrapped in reasonable words. Get out, he said quietly. Daniel, get out of my apartment. Get out before I call the police for trespassing. You can't keep me from him. I can tonight. Daniel moved to the door, holding it open. You want to see Noah? You go through proper channels. You get a lawyer. We establish a visitation schedule through the courts. You prove you're stable and sober and capable of being in his life without destroying him again. But you don't get to show up at 3 in the morning and make demands after abandoning us. Marissa's face hardened. I'm his mother. Then act like it. Act like someone who puts his needs first instead of your own guilt. Daniel's voice shook with barely controlled rage. You want back in his life? Prove you deserve to be there. Prove this isn't just another impulse that you'll abandon when it gets hard. Prove you've actually changed. Marissa stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. My lawyer's information. Have yours contact her. We'll set something up. She paused at the threshold. I love him, Daniel. I never stopped loving him. I just didn't know how to love myself enough to stay. Love isn't enough, Daniel said. Love is showing up. Love is consistency. Love is putting his needs above your own pain. He looked past her into the hallway. And if you can't do that, if there's any part of you that isn't ready, then walk away now, because I won't let you break his heart twice. Marissa's eyes filled with fresh tears, but she nodded. I'll be in touch. She walked away, her footsteps echoing down the stairwell, and Daniel closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. Helena emerged from Noah's room, her face pale and drawn. How is he? Daniel asked. Confused, scared, angry. Helena wrapped her arms around herself. He asked me if you're going to get back together with her. Daniel's stomach dropped. What did you tell him? I told him that was between you and Marissa, that I didn't know what would happen. She looked away. That's true, isn't it? You don't know. Helena, she's his mother, Daniel. She came back. That changes everything. It doesn't change how I feel about you. Doesn't it? Helena's voice was small, broken. Because 18 months ago, she was the person you loved, the person you built a life with, the mother of your child. And now she's back, clean and sober and wanting another chance. How am I supposed to compete with that? You're not competing. There's no competition. There's always competition when it comes to a child's mother. Helena's tears came faster now. I've been living in a fantasy, Daniel, playing house with you and Noah, pretending I could be enough. But I'm not his mother. I'll never be his mother. And now his real mother is back, and I'm just the woman who is keeping her place warm. That's not true, isn't it? Helena's laugh was bitter. Look at me. I'm a foster kid who never had a real family, trying to insert myself into yours. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to navigate this. And Noah needs his mother, even if she hurt him, even if she left. Children need their mothers. They need people who love them and show up for them, Daniel countered. That's you, Helena. You've been showing up for Noah for months. You've been more of a mother to him than Marissa was in the year before she left. But I'm not her. Helena's voice broke completely. And part of you still loves her. I can see it in your eyes. The way you looked at her, there's history there, connection, a child between you. How am I supposed to compete with that? Daniel crossed the room and took Helena's face in his hands. You're right. There is history. There's connection. There's a child who binds us together forever. But I don't love Marissa anymore. I haven't loved her since the day I read that note and realized she chose her addiction over us. But you loved her once, enough to marry her, enough to build a life with her. And I love you now, enough to build a future with you. Daniel wiped her tears with his thumbs. Helena, you're not a placeholder. You're not temporary. You're the person I want to wake up next to every morning. The person I want to help Noah with homework. The person I want to grow old with. How can you be sure? Because Marissa leaving broke me, but you put me back together. You showed me what love looks like when it's healthy and present and real. He pressed his forehead to hers. I'm sure because when I imagine my future, you're in every single moment of it. Helena's sob was wrenching. I'm so scared, Daniel. I'm scared she's going to take him away. I'm scared you're going to realize you still have feelings for her. I'm scared of losing both of you. You're not losing us. You can't promise that. Not when she's threatening legal action. Not when she's his biological mother with rights. Helena pulled back, wrapping her arms around herself. Maybe I should go. Give you space to figure this out with Marissa. Give Noah time to process without me complicating things. No. Daniel's voice was firm. Don't run. Please don't run. I've had enough people run from me for a lifetime. I'm not running. I'm giving you space to... You're terrified, and you're doing what you always do when you're scared. You're building walls and pushing away before someone can leave you first. Daniel caught her hand. But I'm not leaving you, Helena, and I need you not to leave me. I need you to stay and fight for this. For us. For Noah. Helena looked at him with eyes full of fear and longing and desperate hope. What if fighting isn't enough? Then at least we fought, together. He pulled her close, and she collapsed against him, her tears soaking through his shirt. I love you. That doesn't change because Marissa showed up. It doesn't change because things got complicated. It doesn't change at all. They stood there in the pre-dawn darkness, holding each other while Noah cried quietly in his room, and the ghost of Marissa's visit hung heavy in the air. Eventually, Helena whispered, "I should check on Noah again. We should check on him, together." They found Noah curled up in his bed, clutching his stuffed triceratops, his face blotchy from crying. He looked up when they entered, his eyes red-rimmed and heartbreakingly young. "Is Mom coming back?" he asked. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't know, buddy. She wants to see you. Be part of your life again."
Do you want her to?
The question was directed at Daniel, but Noah's eyes flicked to Helena as he asked it. "I want whatever's best for you," Daniel said carefully. "If having your mom in your life is what you need, then we'll figure out how to make that work." "But what about Ms. Vale?" Noah's voice cracked. "If Mom comes back, does Ms. Vale have to leave?" Helena's breath hitched. She knelt beside the bed, taking Noah's hand. "I'm not going anywhere, Noah. Your dad and I, we're together, and your mom coming back doesn't change that." "Promise?" Helena looked at Daniel, her eyes asking for permission to make a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. He nodded. "I promise," Helena said. "I'm not leaving. Even if things get complicated. Even if your mom is here, I'm staying." Noah threw his arms around her neck, and Helena held him tight, her eyes squeezed shut against tears. "I don't want you to go," Noah sobbed into her shoulder. "I love you." "I love you too," Helena whispered back. "So much, Noah. So much." Daniel watched them hold each other and felt his heart crack and mend simultaneously. This was his family, broken and complicated and held together by choice rather than blood, but family nonetheless. He joined them on the bed, wrapping his arms around both of them, and they sat there as the sun started to rise over Chicago, three people trying to hold on to each other while the world shifted beneath their feet. The days that followed were difficult. Marissa's lawyer contacted Daniel's lawyer with a formal request for visitation, supervised at first, then gradually increasing if things went well. Daniel's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia who specialized in family law, advised him not to fight it. "She has rights," Patricia said over the phone. "She never terminated them, never abandoned him legally. And 18 months clean with documented treatment and therapy? A judge will grant visitation. Fighting it will just make you look obstructive." "She left him," Daniel said through gritted teeth. "She destroyed him." "I know, but legally that doesn't matter as much as you'd think. What matters is Noah's best interest going forward, and judges believe children benefit from having both parents in their lives when possible. Even when one parent is an addict? She's in recovery. That counts for something." Patricia's voice softened. "Daniel, I know this is hard, but pick your battles. Let her have supervised visits. If she relapses or proves unstable, we'll have documentation. But if you fight her on reasonable requests, you look like the unreasonable one." Daniel hung up feeling defeated. Helena found him that evening sitting on the balcony of his apartment, staring out at Chicago's lights. She'd let herself in with the key he'd given her 2 weeks ago, a lifetime ago, before Marissa's return had complicated everything. "Noah's doing homework," she said, settling into the chair beside him. "He asked me to check his math." "You're better at it than I am, anyway." They sat in silence for a moment. The January wind was bitter, but neither of them moved to go inside. "Patricia called you?" Helena finally asked. "Yeah. Marissa gets visitation. Supervised at first, 2 hours every Saturday at a family center downtown. Then we reassess." "How do you feel about that?" Daniel laughed, but it was hollow. "How do I feel? I feel like the woman who abandoned my son is being rewarded. I feel like I've spent 18 months putting him back together, and now she gets to waltz back in and undo all of it. I feel like I'm being forced to share him with someone who doesn't deserve him. But," he looked at her, "but he's her son too. And part of me, the part that remembers loving her, remembers the woman she was before the addiction, wants Noah to have his mother back. Wants him to have what I never had, 2 parents who love him. Even if one of those parents hurt him? Even then," Daniel's voice cracked, "because maybe she really has changed. Maybe rehab worked. Maybe she can be the mother he deserves now. And if that's true, then I'm the asshole for trying to keep them apart." Helena reached over and took his hand. You're not an asshole. You're scared for Noah and for yourself. That's normal. Are you scared? Daniel asked quietly. Helena was silent for a long moment, then terrified. Every day, I wake up expecting to find out you've realized Marissa is the better choice, that she's Noah's real mother and I'm just the interloper, that you're getting back together for his sake. That's not going to happen. You can't know that for sure. Families reunite all the time, for the children. Not this family. Daniel turned to face her fully. Helena, I need you to hear me. Marissa and I are done. We're divorced in everything but paperwork, and that's just because we never got around to filing. What we had, it's gone. It died the day she left. But Noah needs stability. He needs people who show up consistently and love him unconditionally. That's you and me. Together. Daniel squeezed her hand. Marissa can be part of his life, can rebuild a relationship with him. But she's not part of our relationship. This, us, is separate from whatever co-parenting arrangement we work out with her. Do you still have feelings for her? The question hung in the cold air between them. Daniel thought about it carefully. Thought about Marissa as she'd been when they first met, bright and funny and full of life. Thought about their wedding day, about the moment Noah was born, about all the small domestic moments that had made up their life together. Thought about the woman who'd left that note and disappeared. I have feelings about her, he said slowly. Anger, hurt, betrayal, grief for what we lost, but love. The kind of love that makes you want to build a life with someone? He shook his head. No, that's reserved for you. Helena's eyes filled with tears. How can you be so sure? Because when I think about my future, you're in it. When I imagine getting old, I see you beside me. When I think about who I want to kiss goodnight every day for the rest of my life, it's you. Daniel brought her hand to his lips. Marissa is Noah's mother. She'll always be that. But you're my partner. You're the woman I love. And nothing about Marissa's return changes that. What if she wants to reconcile? She won't. She knows we're done. But what if, Helena? Daniel cupped her face in his hands. Stop catastrophizing. Stop waiting for me to leave. Stop expecting the worst. I'm here. I'm staying. And I need you to trust that. I'm trying, she whispered. But trusting people doesn't come easily to me. I know. But I'm not people. I'm the man who loves you. The man who wants to marry you someday. The man who wants to build a life with you that's so solid and real that nothing can shake it. Helena's breath caught. Marry me? Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday. When all this settles. When Noah's adjusted. When Marissa's visit schedule is routine instead of traumatic. Yeah, I want to marry you. She kissed him then, desperate and deep and full of everything she couldn't say. When they finally pulled apart, she was crying, but she was smiling too. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll stop waiting for you to leave. I'll try to trust this. That's all I'm asking. They sat there on the balcony until the cold drove them inside, holding hands and watching their breath fog in the air, two broken people choosing to believe in something whole. The first supervised visit happened the following Saturday. Daniel drove Noah to the family center downtown, a cheerful building with bright murals and playrooms designed to make difficult transitions easier. Marissa was already there, waiting in one of the visitation rooms with a social worker named Janet. Noah held Daniel's hand tight as they walked in. His palm was sweaty despite the January cold. It's okay, buddy, Daniel said quietly. I'll be right outside. If you need me, just tell Janet and I'll come get you. What if I don't know what to say to her? Noah whispered. Then you don't say anything. Just be yourself. That's enough. They entered the visitation room. Marissa stood when she saw them, her face lighting up with hope and anxiety. She'd dressed carefully, jeans and a nice sweater, her hair pulled back, makeup subtle. She looked healthy, Daniel noticed, better than she had on New Year's. Hi, Noah, she said softly. Noah didn't let go of Daniel's hand. Hi. Janet, the social worker, stepped in smoothly. Mr. Mercer, if you'd like to wait in the lobby. Noah, your mom brought some games for you two to play. Would you like to see? Noah looked up at Daniel with terrified eyes. Daniel knelt down. You've got this, and I'm right outside if you need me. Promise? Promise. Noah took a deep breath and let go of Daniel's hand. He crossed the room slowly and sat at the table where Marissa had set up a board game. Daniel left before he could see what happened next, left before his heart could break any further. He sat in the lobby, unable to focus on the magazine he'd brought, checking his watch every 30 seconds. Helena had wanted to come, but Daniel had thought it would be too much, too many people, too many emotions. She'd stayed home instead, probably pacing their apartment and worrying. 2 hours felt like 2 years. Finally, Janet emerged with Noah. His eyes were red, but not actively crying. His face was carefully neutral. "How'd it go?" Daniel asked, standing. "Good," Janet said with professional cheer. "They played games, talked a bit. I think it went well. Same time next week?" Daniel looked at Noah. "Yeah, same time next week." In the car, Noah was silent. Daniel let him be, knowing he'd talk when he was ready. They were almost home when Noah finally spoke. "She said she's sorry." Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Yeah?" "She said she was sick, that she went away to get better, that she loves me and never stopped loving me." Noah's voice was flat, robotic. "She cried a lot." "How did that make you feel?" Noah was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, confused. I wanted to hug her, but I also wanted to yell at her. I wanted to tell her about school and my friends and everything that happened while she was gone, but I also wanted to ask her why it took so long to come back, why getting better was more important than being with me. Those are all normal feelings, buddy. Did you ever want her to come back?" The question caught Daniel off guard. He thought about lying, about giving Noah the easy answer, but they'd built their relationship on honesty. "At first, yeah. I wanted her to come back and explain and apologize, and for everything to go back to normal." Daniel pulled into their building's parking lot and turned off the engine. "But after a while, I stopped wanting that, because I realized normal wasn't actually that good. Your mom and I, we weren't happy the last year we were together. We were just going through the motions." "Do you love her now?" "I'll always care about her because she's your mother. But love? Nobody. I don't love her anymore." "Do you love Ms. Vale?" Daniel smiled. "Yeah, I really do." "Good." Noah unbuckled his seatbelt. "Because she's better at making pancakes." The casual observation made Daniel laugh. Really laugh, for the first time in a week. They went upstairs to find Helena pacing the living room exactly as Daniel had predicted. She looked up when they entered, her face anxious. "How was it?" she asked, directing the question to Noah. Noah shrugged. "Weird, she's different than I remember. Smaller, I think." Helena knelt down to his level. "That makes sense. You've grown a lot in 18 months. And people change." "Have you ever changed?" Noah asked. Helena smiled. "I'm changing right now. Your dad and you're teaching me how to be part of a family, how to stay when things get hard. That's a big change for me." Noah hugged her suddenly, fiercely. "Don't change too much. I like you how you are." Over Noah's head, Helena met Daniel's eyes. In hers, he saw everything she'd promised on the balcony. The choice to trust, the choice to stay, the choice to believe in them even when it was terrifying. He mouthed, "I love you." She smiled and mouthed it back. That night, after Noah was asleep, Daniel and Helena lay in bed talking quietly. "What if he wants to spend more time with her?" Helena asked. "What if supervised visits turn into weekends? What if she asks for joint custody? Then we deal with it, together." "I'm not his parent, Daniel. I won't have any legal say." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, "What if you were?" Helena went still. "What?" "What if we got married? What if you adopted Noah, became his legal parent? Then you'd have say. You'd be protected. We'd all be protected." "Daniel, I know I said someday, but maybe someday is now. Maybe we need to make this official, make us permanent, before Marissa can use our relationship against us." He rolled over to face her. "Marry me, Helena, not because you're scared, not because Marissa showed up, but because I love you, and I want you to be my wife and Noah's mother in every way that matters." Helena's eyes were wide in the darkness. "Are you proposing?" "I'm asking you to think about it. Really think about it." Daniel laced their fingers together. "I don't have a ring yet. I don't have a plan or a romantic speech. I just have this feeling that you're supposed to be ours legally, officially, permanently. That we're supposed to be a family in the eyes of the law and everyone else. What about Noah? Shouldn't we ask him? We will. But first I need to know, is this something you want, or am I pushing too hard too fast? Helena was silent for so long that Daniel started to panic. Then she said quietly, I've never let myself want marriage. Never let myself imagine being someone's wife, someone's mother. It felt too much like setting myself up for failure. And now? Now I can't imagine not being those things. She squeezed his hand. Yes. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll adopt Noah if he wants that. Yes to all of it. Because you're right. This needs to be permanent. We need to be a family in every way that matters. Daniel kissed her, and it felt like sealing a promise, like drawing a line in the sand that said this far and no further. Marissa could be part of Noah's life, but she couldn't touch what they'd built together. We should tell Noah tomorrow, Helena said. Together. Together, Daniel agreed. They fell asleep holding each other, and for the first time since Marissa's return, Daniel felt something like peace. The proposal conversation with Noah happened over Sunday breakfast. They'd made pancakes, Helena's recipe, which Noah had declared superior to all others, and waited until he'd eaten his fill before bringing it up. Hey, buddy, Daniel started. Ms. Vale and I want to talk to you about something. Noah looked up from his last bite of pancake. Are you getting married? Daniel and Helena exchanged glances. How did you? Tyler's mom said you probably would. She said it's romantic. Noah shrugged. Also, you've been acting weird all morning, like nervous weird. Helena laughed. We have been acting weird, haven't we? Super weird, Noah confirmed. Daniel took a breath. Okay, yes, we want to get married. But before we do, we wanted to make sure you're okay with it. Why wouldn't I be okay with it? Well, because your mom's back now. And that might be confusing. And we wanted to make sure you knew that Ms. Vale and I getting married doesn't mean your mom isn't important. Noah considered this seriously. Mom left. Ms. Vale stayed. Why would I be confused about that? The simple logic of it hit Daniel in the chest. Out of the mouths of babes. There's something else, Helena said gently. If you're comfortable with it, after we get married, I'd like to adopt you, to be your mom legally, but only if that's something you want. Noah's eyes went wide. Really? Really? It doesn't mean your birth mother isn't your mother. You can have both. But it would mean that legally, I'd be your parent too. I'd be able to make decisions about school and doctors and all the important stuff. And it would mean you couldn't leave, Noah said shrewdly. Right? Because you'd be my mom legally? Helena's breath caught. Is that what you're worried about? That I'll leave? Everyone leaves eventually. The words were matter of fact, delivered with the exhausted wisdom of a child who'd learned too young that people weren't permanent. Helena slid off her chair and knelt in front of Noah. I'm not everyone, and I'm not leaving. But you're right. If I adopt you, if I'm your mother legally, that makes it even harder for me to go anywhere, because I'd be bound to you by law and love and choice. All three. So you really promise you're not going anywhere? I really promise. Cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye, whatever oath you need me to take. Noah studied her face like he was searching for lies. Finally, he said, Okay. Okay? Okay, you can adopt me. And okay, you and Dad can get married. He paused. Can I call you Mom? Helena's eyes filled with tears. I would love that more than anything. Noah threw his arms around her and she held him tight. This child who wasn't hers by blood, but was absolutely hers by every measure that mattered. Daniel watched them hold each other and felt his world settle. This was right. This was real. This was the family he was meant to have. Whatever happened with Marissa, whatever battles lay ahead, they would face them together. All three of them, as a family. The news of their engagement spread through Vale dynamics like wildfire. Marcus cornered Daniel at the coffee machine Monday morning with a grin so wide it looked painful. You're actually doing it. You're marrying the Ice Queen. Her name is Helena, Daniel said mildly, pouring his third cup of coffee. And yes, we're getting married. When's the wedding? Please tell me I'm invited. I've been invested in this relationship since the kiss heard round the office. Daniel couldn't help but smile. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. But yeah, you're invited. I'm honored, truly. Marcus leaned against the counter. For what it's worth, I'm happy for you. She's different now, lighter. You can see it in the way she runs meetings, still sharp, still demanding, but there's this warmth underneath that wasn't there before. She was always warm, she just didn't know how to show it. Well, she knows now. You taught her. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. That's love, man. Changing each other for the better. Daniel carried that thought with him through the day, through meetings and presentations and the mundane work of corporate life. Helena was in back-to-back calls, so they didn't see each other until late afternoon when she appeared at his desk with that small, private smile that was his favorite sight. Walk with me? She asked. They rode the elevator down to the lobby and stepped out into Chicago's February cold, walking toward Millennium Park without discussion. It had become their place, where they'd had their first real conversation, where Helena had admitted her fears, where they'd started building something real. I told the board this morning, Helena said as they walked, about the engagement. How'd they take it? Surprisingly well. Apparently workplace romances are trending positively in employee satisfaction metrics. She smiled, though they did suggest we consider a non-compete clause in our prenup. Romantic. Extremely. Helena tucked her hand into the crook of his arm. I also told them I'm promoting you. Executive Vice President of Creative Strategy. Your own team, your own budget, direct report to me. Daniel stopped walking. Helena, this isn't nepotism. You've earned it. The Carlson campaign won 3 industry awards. You've brought in 4 new clients in the last 2 months. Your team loves you. She turned to face him. You're brilliant at what you do, Daniel. I should have promoted you months ago. People will talk. Let them. I built this company. I can promote whoever I want. Her eyes softened. But if you're not comfortable with it, say so. I won't push. Daniel thought about it. Thought about the months he'd spent proving himself, the campaigns he'd created, the teams he'd led. Thought about whether he could live with the whispers that he'd slept his way to a promotion. Then he thought about Helena implementing family-friendly policies across the entire company because he'd had the courage to quit. Thought about her changing Vail Dynamics culture from the ground up. Thought about the woman who'd never compromised her standards, suddenly willing to bend the entire corporate structure to accommodate the people she employed. I'll take it, he said, but I want Marcus as my deputy. He's been loyal to both of us through all of this. He deserves the recognition. Done. Helena kissed him quickly, not caring who saw. God, I love you. Love you too, future Mrs. Mercer. She pulled back, eyebrows raised. Who said I'm taking your name? Aren't you? I haven't decided yet. Vail has brand recognition, but Mercer has a nice ring to it. She pretended to consider. Helena Mercer. Helena Vail Mercer. Helena Mercer Vail. You could keep Vail professionally and use Mercer personally, or we could both hyphenate. Daniel Vail Mercer has a certain gravitas. Daniel laughed. We have time to decide. They walked back to the office hand in hand, and Daniel felt the last piece of his old life, the part that had been defined by Marissa's abandonment, finally let go. He was building something new now, something better, something that belonged entirely to him and Helena and Noah. The supervised visits with Marissa continued every Saturday. Some weeks went better than others. Noah would come home animated, telling them about the games they'd played or the stories Marissa had shared about his grandparents. Other weeks he was quiet and withdrawn, processing emotions too complex for a 9-year-old to articulate. Helena attended a visit for the first time in late February. Marissa had asked to meet her, a request that had sent Helena into a spiral of anxiety that took Daniel 2 days to talk her down from. What if she hates me? Helena had asked the night before, pacing their bedroom. She won't hate you. What if she tries to use our relationship as evidence that Noah's living in an unstable environment? Patricia says that won't fly. We're engaged. We're both employed. We provide a stable home. There's nothing unstable about it. What if she asks me to step back, to give them space to rebuild their relationship? Daniel had stopped her pacing, holding her shoulders. Then you tell her no. politely but firmly, "You're part of Noah's life. That's not negotiable." Now, sitting in the family center's waiting room while Helena met Marissa in the visitation room, Daniel wondered if he'd been too optimistic. He'd wanted to go in with her, but Janet had suggested Helena and Marissa meet alone first, neutral ground, no child to buffer the tension. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Finally, the door opened. Helena emerged looking shaken but not destroyed. Behind her, Marissa appeared, her face carefully neutral. "We'll see you next week, Noah," Marissa said, hugging their son goodbye. In the car, Daniel waited until they were out of the parking lot before asking, "How was it?" Helena was quiet for a moment, staring out the window. Noah had his headphones in, lost in whatever game he was playing on his tablet. "She thanked me," Helena finally said. "For what?" "For taking care of Noah. For being there when she couldn't be. For loving him." Helena's voice cracked slightly. "She said she was grateful that he had me, that she could see how much I care about him, and that she wanted me to know she wasn't trying to push me out." Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What did you say?" "I told her I loved him, that I was going to adopt him after Daniel and I got married, and that I hoped we could co-parent civilly for his sake." Helena turned to look at Daniel. She cried, said she deserved to lose me as competition, but was grateful I was willing to share, that she knew she'd destroyed everything and was just trying to salvage what she could. "Do you believe her?" "I don't know, maybe." Helena shook her head. "She seems genuine, broken but genuine, like she really does want to be Noah's mother again, not because it's easy, but because she knows she failed him and wants to make it right." From the back seat, Noah's voice surprised them both. "She's sad a lot." Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror. "Yeah, buddy? During visits. She tries to hide it, but I can tell. She's sad about missing everything, about not being there." Noah pulled out his headphones. "I think she wishes she could go back and do it different." "Do you wish that too?" Helena asked gently. Noah considered this. "Sometimes. But then I remember that if she hadn't left, I wouldn't have you, and I like having you." Helena's breath hitched. "I like having you too. So maybe it's okay that things happened the way they did, even if it was bad at the time." Noah went back to his game. "Tyler's mom says everything happens for a reason." Daniel and Helena exchanged looks. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. The wedding planning happened in fits and starts around work and Noah's schedule and Marissa's visits. They decided on a small ceremony in late April, just family and close friends, held in the same park where they'd had their first real conversation. Helena had wanted something simple, almost apologetically so. "I've never let myself imagine a wedding," she'd admitted one night while looking at venues online. "It feels presumptuous, like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's dream." "It's your dream now," Daniel had said. "Our dream. Make it whatever you want." So they'd settled on simple. 50 guests, a ceremony by the Crown Fountain, dinner at a restaurant Helena loved. Noah would be the ring bearer, wearing a suit he was already complaining about. Marcus would be Daniel's best man. Helena had asked the school nurse from Lakeside, a woman named Grace who'd mentored her volunteer work, to be her maid of honor. The invitation list included Marissa. Daniel had argued against it initially. "It's too much, too complicated. She'll feel uncomfortable, we'll feel uncomfortable, Noah will be caught in the middle." But Helena had been firm. "She's Noah's mother. If we're going to co-parent successfully, we need to show her she's included, that we're not trying to erase her." "You're more generous than I am." "I'm more practical than you are," Helena had corrected. "We set the tone for how this works. If we exclude her, she feels threatened and fights harder for custody. If we include her, she sees we're willing to share." So the invitation went out, carefully worded, "You're invited to celebrate the marriage of Daniel Mercer and Helena Vale. We hope you'll join us as we become a family." Marissa RSVP'd. "Yes," with a handwritten note. "Thank you for including me. I'm honored to witness Noah's family growing." "Congratulations." Helena had cried when she read it. The weeks leading up to the wedding were chaotic. Daniel's promotion meant longer hours and bigger responsibilities. Helena was navigating a major acquisition that had her in meetings until midnight. Noah had a school play, a science fair, and approximately 7,000 questions about whether Helena would still be Ms. Vale or become Mrs. Mercer. Through it all, they found pockets of normalcy. Wednesday dinners together, Sunday mornings at the zoo or museum, bedtime stories with Noah sandwiched between them. Small moments of domesticity that felt like promises. This is what forever looks like. Imperfect and exhausting and utterly worth it. One evening in early April, Daniel found Helena on their balcony crying. Not sad crying, happy crying, the kind that came from too much emotion with nowhere to go. "What's wrong?" he asked, pulling her close. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right." She wiped her eyes. "I was just thinking about the foster homes, about all those years of being alone, about how I built my entire life around not needing anyone because needing people hurt too much. And now? Now I need you and Noah so much it terrifies me. But it's a good terror, like standing at the edge of something beautiful and knowing you're about to jump." She turned in his arms. 3 months ago, I didn't think I was capable of this, of being someone's wife, someone's mother, of having a family that chose me. We did choose you. We do choose you. Every single day. I know, that's what makes me cry. She laughed through her tears. "I'm happy, Daniel. For the first time in my life, I'm actually genuinely happy, and I don't know what to do with that. You let yourself feel it. You let yourself keep it." He kissed her forehead. "And you trust that we're not going anywhere." She nodded against his chest, and they stood there watching Chicago's lights until the cold drove them inside. The night before the wedding, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Helena curled against his side, and thought about the journey that had brought them here. The kiss that started everything, the confession in the park, the slow building of trust, Marissa's return, the decision to get married not despite the complications, but because of them. "You're thinking too loud," Helena murmured without opening her eyes. "Sorry." "What are you thinking about?" "Tomorrow. Us. How we got here." Helena shifted to look at him. "Having second thoughts?" "Never. Are you?" "Every 5 minutes, but I keep coming back to the same conclusion. I want this. I want you. I want us." She traced patterns on his chest. "I'm still scared. I'm still waiting for something to go wrong, but I'm also ready to take the leap." "Together," Daniel said. "Together," she echoed. They fell asleep holding each other, and Daniel dreamed of futures that didn't end in abandonment. The wedding day arrived with perfect spring weather, sunny and warm, Chicago at its best. Daniel stood by the Crown Fountain in his suit, Marcus beside him, watching guests arrive and take their seats on the white chairs they'd rented for the occasion. He saw Marissa arrive, dressed simply in a pale blue dress, taking a seat in the back. She smiled at him tentatively, and he nodded back. This was progress, civil, complicated, but progress nonetheless. Noah appeared at his side, tugging at his collar. "This tie is choking me." "You look very handsome." "I look like I'm going to a funeral," Marcus laughed. "Weddings and funerals both involve uncomfortable clothes and forced smiling. You're not wrong." "That's not helping, Marcus," Daniel said. "When do I give you the rings?" Noah asked. "When the officiant asks for them. We practice this." "I know, but what if I forget? What if I drop them? What if—" "Noah." Daniel knelt down to his son's level. "You're going to be great. And even if you drop the rings, we'll pick them up and keep going. Nothing you do can ruin this day, okay?" Noah nodded, still nervous but slightly calmed. The music started, a string quartet playing something classical and beautiful. The guests stood. And then Helena appeared at the end of the aisle, and Daniel's heart stopped. She wore a simple ivory dress that fell to her knees, her hair down in soft waves, no veil. She carried a small bouquet of white roses, and when she smiled, it lit up her entire face. She looked nothing like a CEO. She looked young and nervous and absolutely radiant. Grace walked beside her, the closest thing Helena had to family, and when they reached the front, Grace kissed Helena's cheek and whispered something that made her laugh. Then Helena was standing in front of Daniel, and nothing else mattered. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," he whispered back. "You're beautiful. You're not bad yourself." The officiant cleared his throat with an amused smile. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony was simple. Traditional vows with small personal additions. Daniel promised to always make terrible jokes and bring her coffee. Helena promised to always show up and never build walls. They exchanged rings, simple gold bands, and when the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," Daniel cupped Helena's face and kissed her softly, reverently, like she was something precious he'd been trusted to protect. The guests erupted in applause. Noah cheered, and when Daniel and Helena broke apart, both of them had tears streaming down their faces. "We did it," Helena whispered. "We did," Daniel agreed. They walked back down the aisle hand in hand, and Daniel caught Marissa's eye as they passed. She was crying too, but she was smiling, and she mouthed congratulations with what looked like genuine happiness. The reception was exactly what they'd wanted, low-key and full of laughter, good food, better wine, dancing under string lights as the sun set over Chicago. Noah danced with Helena, standing on her feet, and then with Marissa, who held him carefully like he might break. At one point, Daniel found himself alone with Marissa at the bar. She ordered club soda, staying sober, he noticed, and turned to him with a careful smile. "Thank you for inviting me," she said. "I know it wasn't easy." Helena thought it was important for Noah. "She's good for him, for both of you." Marissa looked over at where Helena was laughing with grace. "I spent 18 months convincing myself you'd both be better off without me. Turns out I was right, just not in the way I thought." "Marissa, let me finish." She took a shaky breath. "I was a terrible wife and a worse mother. I let my addiction destroy everything good in my life, and when I came back, part of me hoped—" She stopped. "It doesn't matter what I hoped. What matters is that Noah's happy, that he has stability and love and two parents who show up for him. You're showing up now, in supervised 2-hour increments. It's not the same." Marissa's smile was sad. "But it's what I have, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful you're letting me be part of his life at all. He needs you. Maybe not the way he needs Helena and me, but he still needs to know his mother loves him. I do love him. More than anything." She looked at Daniel. "I loved you too once, before everything fell apart. I want you to know that. I know. And I'm happy for you, genuinely happy. You deserve this, the love, the family, the fresh start." She raised her glass of club soda. "To new beginnings." Daniel clinked his glass against hers. "To new beginnings." Later, when the party was winding down and guests were leaving, Daniel and Helena stood with Noah watching the crown fountain cycle through its LED faces. "This is where Dad asked you to marry him, right?" Noah asked. "Sort of," Helena said. "This is where he first told me he loved me. The actual proposal happened at home." "Which was better?" Helena looked at Daniel. "They were both perfect in different ways. This is where I learned to trust him. Home is where I learned to trust myself." Noah considered this. "Can I call you Mom now, since you're married?" Helena's eyes filled with tears. "You can call me whatever you're comfortable with." "I want to call you Mom, if that's okay." "It's more than okay." Helena pulled him into a hug. "I'd be honored." Daniel wrapped his arms around both of them, and they stood there as a family, legally now, officially, in every way that mattered. The adoption proceedings started the following week. Patricia handled the paperwork, navigating the complex legal landscape of step-parent adoption with practiced efficiency. Marissa signed the consent forms without hesitation, her lawyer present to make it official. "I want him to have security," Marissa told them at the signing. "I want him to know Helena's not going anywhere, that he has two mothers who love him, even if I can only be there part-time." The final hearing was in June. They all dressed up, Daniel in a suit, Helena in a dress, Noah in the same outfit he'd worn to the wedding, but with significantly less complaining. Even Marissa came, sitting in the gallery with a proud smile. The judge was an older woman with kind eyes and a reputation for prioritizing children's well-being above legal technicalities. "Noah," she said, looking directly at him, "do you understand what's happening today?" Noah nodded. "Helena's adopting me. She's going to be my legal mom. And you want this?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" Noah thought about it. "Because she shows up every day for school stuff and doctor appointments, and when I'm sad. She helps with homework and makes good pancakes and reads bedtime stories with funny voices. She's been my mom for a long time. This just makes it official." The judge smiled. That's a very good answer. She looked at Helena. Ms. Vale Mercer, do you understand the responsibilities you're taking on? I do, Your Honor. Helena's voice was steady. I understand that I'm committing to love and care for Noah for the rest of my life. To put his needs first. To be present and consistent and everything a mother should be. Ms. Sutton, the judge addressed Marissa, you've consented to this adoption. You understand it doesn't terminate your parental rights, but it does give Ms. Vale Mercer equal legal standing? I do, Your Honor, and I support it completely. Marissa's voice was clear. My son deserves to have two mothers who are fully committed to him. Helena has earned this. The judge reviewed the paperwork one final time. Then she smiled. In that case, it's my honor to grant this adoption petition. As of today, Helena Vale Mercer is Noah's legal parent with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. She banged her gavel. Congratulations to your family. Helena dissolved into tears. Noah hugged her tight. Daniel wrapped his arms around both of them, and even Marissa was crying in the gallery. But she was smiling too. Outside the courthouse, Marissa pulled Helena aside while Daniel helped Noah navigate the courthouse steps. Thank you, Marissa said quietly, for loving my son, for being what I couldn't be. You're welcome, Helena said. And Marissa, you're getting there. Every week, you show up for those visits. That counts for something. It doesn't undo the damage. No, but it builds something new. Helena squeezed her hand. We're all just doing our best. That's all any of us can do. Marissa nodded, and they parted ways with something that felt like understanding, if not quite forgiveness. 6 months later, Vale Dynamics celebrated its most successful year on record. The company-wide gala was held at a downtown hotel. Executives and employees mingling in formal wear, celebrating the growth and innovation that had defined the past year. Helena stood at the podium in a stunning black dress, her hair elegantly styled, looking every inch the powerful CEO she'd always been. But when she spoke, her voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there a year ago. When I built this company, she said, I believe success was measured in revenue and market share, in being the best, the most ruthless, the most uncompromising. I built walls around myself and called it strength. I prioritized work over everything and called it dedication. She paused, her eyes finding Daniel in the crowd. Then someone had the courage to quit. To tell me that work wasn't worth sacrificing family, that being present mattered more than being perfect. And that conversation changed everything. Helena's voice strengthened. This year, we implemented comprehensive family-friendly policies. Flexible scheduling, enhanced parental leave, work-from-home options, on-site childcare. And you know what happened? Productivity increased. Retention increased. Employee satisfaction hit record highs. Because it turns out that when you treat people like humans instead of resources, they give you their best work. Applause filled the room. I used to think control was power, Helena continued, but real strength is letting people in. Real power is building a culture where everyone can bring their whole selves to work. The parent worried about their sick child, the employee caring for aging parents, the human being trying to balance competing demands. She looked directly at Daniel. Real strength is admitting you were wrong and choosing to change. Real power is letting yourself be vulnerable enough to love and be loved in return. More applause. Helena smiled, and it transformed her face. So here's to another year of growth, not just in revenue, but in humanity. Not just in market share, but in compassion. Not just in being the best company, but in being the best version of ourselves. She raised her glass. Thank you all for being part of this journey. The room erupted in applause. Daniel stood clapping hard, his chest swelling with pride. Around him, other employees rose to their feet, and soon the entire room was giving Helena a standing ovation. After the formal presentations, Daniel found Helena on the balcony overlooking Chicago's skyline. She was still holding her champagne, staring out at the lights with a soft smile. Hell of a speech, he said, joining her. I meant every word. I know you did. He slipped an arm around her waist. How does it feel to have everything you've worked for and the family you never thought you'd have? Helena leaned into him. Terrifying, wonderful, like I might wake up and find out it was all a dream. It's real, we're real. I know, but sometimes I still can't believe it. She turned to face him. A year ago, I was alone, convinced I'd always be alone, that I wasn't built for love or family or any of this. And now I have a husband and a son and a life that feels so full I don't know how I lived before. You survived before. Now you're living. We're living, she corrected. All three of us. They stood there watching the city, and Daniel thought about the journey that had brought them here. The kiss that started everything. The slow building of trust. The choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. The decision to build a family from broken pieces. Noah asked me something yesterday, Helena said. He wanted to know if I was happy. What did you tell him? I told him I was happier than I ever thought possible. That every day with him and you feels like a gift I don't deserve, but I'm incredibly grateful for. She smiled. He said that's how he feels about having me as his mom, that he doesn't know what he did to deserve it, but he's glad it happened. Daniel's throat tightened. He's a good kid. He's an amazing kid. We're lucky. We are. They went back inside eventually, back to the celebration and the colleagues and the company Helena had built. But first they stood together on that balcony. Two people who'd learned that the strongest foundations were built on vulnerability, that the best families were chosen, and that love, real, lasting, transformative love, was worth every risk. The following Saturday they went to the zoo, all four of them. Daniel and Helena, Noah and Marissa, who'd graduated to unsupervised visits and was slowly, carefully rebuilding her relationship with her son. It was awkward at first, the four of them navigating the strange dynamics of co-parenting, but Noah's excitement about the new penguin exhibit smoothed over the rough edges. They watched the penguins together, Noah narrating facts he'd learned from documentaries. Marissa and Helena stood side by side, their relationship still fragile but growing stronger, united by their love for the same child. Thank you, Marissa said quietly to Helena, for sharing him. I know you didn't have to. Yes, I did, Helena replied, because he needs you too, not the same way he needs me, but he needs to know his mother loves him, that you came back, that you're trying. I am trying every day. I know, he knows too. Daniel watched them talk, watched his son point excitedly at baby penguins, and felt something settle in his chest. This wasn't the family he'd imagined having. It was messier, more complicated, with more moving parts than any traditional structure. But it was theirs, built on honesty and hard work, and the choice to show up even when it was difficult. Built on the understanding that love wasn't about perfection, it was about presence. About choosing each other every day, even when easier options existed. That night, after they dropped Marissa back at her apartment and Noah had fallen asleep in the car, Daniel and Helena sat in their parked car outside their building, neither ready to go inside yet. He called Marissa Mom today, Helena said quietly. At the zoo. Mom, look at this. Just casual, natural. How did that make you feel? Relieved, Helena said, surprising him. Because it means he's healing. It means he can love both of us without feeling like he's betraying either one. It means we're doing this right. We are doing this right, Daniel agreed. It's messy and complicated, but we're making it work. Together, Helena said, taking his hand. Together, Daniel echoed. They sat there in the quiet car, holding hands, and Daniel thought about the kiss that had started everything. How it had felt like an ending, of his job, of his understanding of Helena, of the careful walls they'd both built. But it had actually been a beginning, the beginning of vulnerability, of trust, of building a family from the broken pieces of two damaged people who'd learned that the strongest foundations were laid in honesty, maintained with consistency, and strengthened by the choice to stay. Noah stirred in the back seat. Are we home yet? Yeah, buddy, Daniel said, squeezing Helena's hand one more time. We're home. And as they climbed out of the car and headed inside, Daniel carrying a sleepy Noah, Helena gathering discarded jackets and backpacks, Daniel realized that home wasn't about the place. It had never been about the place. Home was this, the three of them together, the family they'd chosen, the love they'd built from nothing. And every single day, they chose it again. That was the real happy ending. Not the wedding or the adoption or the successful company or the reconciliation with Marissa. The real happy ending was the choice, the daily, deliberate choice to show up, to stay, to love even when it was hard, to build something permanent from the impermanent pieces of their broken pasts. The kiss had changed everything, but the choice to stay, that's what made it last. And as Helena tucked Noah into bed that night, reading him a story about dragons with her now famous funny voices, and Daniel stood in the doorway watching them both, he knew with absolute certainty that this messy, complicated, perfectly imperfect life was exactly what he was meant to have. Not despite the difficulties, because of them. Because the best things in life were never easy. They were just worth it,